Good morning. You are watching KBC Channel 1 and are in time for live proceedings from the National Assembly this Wednesday, 9th day of October 2019. Wednesday is the day the National Assembly holds two sittings, one in the morning, specifically for private members' bills and motions, and another in the afternoon. And so this morning one, we'll see a number of bills and motions discussed if everything unfolds according to the order paper. There is resumption of debate on the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of the year 2019. This bill is sponsored by Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, Member of Parliament Kiharu. It seeks to amend the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act number 3 of the year 2003, in order to prescribe a minimum penalty to act as deterrence mechanisms for persons who engage in corrupt conduct as defined in the law. He anchors his bill on the premise that currently a person convicted of an offense under the Act is liable to a fine not exceeding 1 million shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years or both. And he notes that there has been an increase in corruption cases in the country, and one way of nipping this graft menace in the bud is enhancing consequences of engaging in such activities. The Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Board Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of the year 2019, sponsored by Mandera North Member of Parliament Honorable Bashir Abdullahi, is another one that is awaiting debate in the National Assembly this morning. It seeks to streamline the marketing of livestock and livestock products in the country, considering that the industry is an important source of income for many households, and that it is therefore prudent that there is proper regulation to ensure quality service delivery by concerned stakeholders. A live broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Vereso Mwanga. Your sign language interpreter will be Gideon Mbogo. Good morning and enjoy the proceedings.
Wajumbe tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu. Twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambayo umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe na kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Now, since we do not seem to have the requisite quorum, I order that the bell be rung for 10 minutes.
A quorum hitching the National Assembly this Wednesday morning, once the House attains the minimum required, which is 50 members, then business shall start. Members of the House leadership moving out to rally the legislators to come in. The Honorable Chris Omalo has just walked out. Honorable Benjamin Washiali, also working out there, doing their bit to rally members to come in order for the House to constitute that minimum number as required by the standing orders approved by members themselves. And once a quorum is achieved, then members shall proceed to consider issues as listed in the order paper this morning. In addition to the bills and motions lined up for debate, there is also the now regular question time, a session introduced by members themselves late last year. And this morning we expect 4 questions from members, ordinary questions directed to cabinet secretaries. One of them is from the member for Sigowet Soin, Honorable Kipsengeret Koros. He'll be seeking answers from the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Cecily Karaoke, concerning the status of the Public Health Officers and Technicians Council, a public body mandated to oversee training, registration, and licensing of public health professionals. He is inquiring whether they have been charging registration and licensing fees and whether there is a standard curriculum for teaching of public health programs in the country as set out by the council. He's also seeking answers to why the council has been charging training institutions in order to conduct inspections with regard to establishment of standards for teaching of public health programs, yet it is fully funded by the Exchequer. Another question is expected from the member for Mbeere North, Honorable Muriuki Njagagwa. He'll be seeking answers from the Chairperson Teachers Service Commission concerning the recruitment status of one Marinzi Samakau, a graduate of Kenyatta University. He has actually indicated her TSC number. Ms. Makau is said to have emerged successful during an interview conducted for a teaching position at Mutus Mixed Secondary School in Embu County. And it would appear that she is yet to take up that position. And so the Honorable Njagagwa will be seeking answers as to why that has not happened yet. Kamukunji Member of Parliament, Honorable Yusuf Hassan, has a question for the Cabinet Secretary, Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development concerning construction and rehabilitation of roads in 11 constituencies in Eastlands area of Nairobi County. He wants to know how many have been recarpeted or built in accordance with the presidential order issued in 2018, in May 2018. And also he wants specific details of the said roads, particularly the location in terms of constituency and the status of rehabilitation or construction and the cost involved. A quorum has been achieved as indicated by the orderlies there. We shall have confirmation from the Speaker.
Order members, order members. Now take your seats. We have quorum and therefore business will begin.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Under this one, honorable members, just for your information, I have been requested by the Chair, Committee on Delegated Legislation, that she would wish to lay a paper slightly later than is normal. So I've given her an opportunity to lay that particular paper at 10:30. 10:30. 10:30.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable JP Wirigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the notice of the following motion, that aware that Kenya has an estimate of 8 million widows, with the number seen to be steadily increasing. The concern that most widows face numerous challenges, including losing their sources of income and security, economic hardship, social discrimination, degrading treatment, and physical and mental abuse. Cognizant that the same challenges could be mitigated through providing widows with the alternative source of income that would afford them a level of liberty and dignity in their lives upon the death of their spouses, appreciating the effort by the government in empowering widows economically through various programs that provide opportunities for capacity building and skills training for widows. Further appreciating that the government has established the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, GAF, Women Enterprise Fund, WEF, Uwezo Fund, and Youth Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, which provides loans and financing to the targeted groups. This House urges the government to classify widows as a disadvantaged group and establish a widows fund for the sole purposes of economically empowering widows. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
I am yet to receive any request for statements, but we have a few ordinary questions. And to start us off is Honorable Kipsangaret Korok's member for Sigawe Tsoin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 443 of 2019 to the Secretary for Health. 1. Why has the Public Health Officers and Technician Council, a public health body, mandated to oversee training, registration, and licensing of public health professionals, been charging registration and licensing fees? 2. Is there a standard curriculum for teaching of public health programs in Kenya by the Council? 3. Why has the Council been charging training institutions in order to conduct inspection with regard to establishment of standards for teaching of public health programs, yet it is fully funded by the Exchequer? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Health. Next is a member for Mbeere North, Honorable Muriuki Njagagwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. My question is directed to, I think, the Departmental Committee of Education. Could the Commission, that is the Teachers Service Commission, provide the recruitment status of one Mary Nzinza Makao, a graduate of Kenyatta University, teacher service number 666-705/Y, who emerged successful during the interview conducted for teaching position at Motors Mixed Secondary School, Embu County, on 30th May 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you very much. That will be due for a written reply by the chairperson of the Teacher Service Commission. Next is a member for Kamukunji, Honorable Yusuf Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can you give me some few minutes for me to get into the system to fetch my my question, please.
The easier option is for me to give you what I have.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I have it.
because the system is already working. I think, yes, you can proceed now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to ask this question, question number 445, stroke 2019. For the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. I'd like to ask the CS how many roads have been constructed or rehabilitated in the 11 constituencies in the Eastland area of Nairobi County as per the Presidential Directive of May 2018 under the Kenya shilling 4 billion scheme to improve road, especially in the Eastlands. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the said roads, particularly the location in terms of constituency, construction, rehabilitation status, and the cost of each project with specific, I have a specific interest in what they have done in my own constituency of Kamkunji. Thank you.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Now, the next question, which would have been the last one, would have been by the member for Lamu East. He has made a written request that the matter be deferred, and I accept to defer it to the next available opportunity. Okay. Honorable members, I see a few members who are pressing intervention. What is it, Honorable Mutua Barasa, member for Kimilili?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rose here on last 3 weeks to request for a statement on the very many accidents that are happening in this country, a statement that was to be given through the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, and indeed the Vice Chair committed to provide this statement within 2 weeks. Now, Honorable Speaker, this is the 3rd week, and I'm wondering whether the statement will, when the statement will be coming, because I don't want to wait for it for a very long time, Honorable Speaker, owing to the fact that accidents are increasing every day, despite the fact that police carry out investigations. Then this means that maybe their investigations are not effective. So that's why I wanted to that statement from through the chair of Administration and National Security, Honorable Speaker. So I just want to again to remind them and maybe give us a fresh undertaking. But I don't think if they need more than 3 days to provide it, owing to that this is something that the government has been doing. The police has been investigating these matters. The NTSA has been alive, Honorable Speaker. So I think you should order them to provide the statement by Tuesday next week, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
Well, is the chairperson Administration and Security Committee in, or his vice? I do know for sure that last week they had a major function in Nairobi here. Actually, part of last week in terms of preparation, and this week. Now, but yours is a genuine concern, Honorable Member for Kimilili. I only wish they were here to confirm their availability to place the statement before us. Of course, it's an extremely urgent issue, and it is serious when members commit themselves, when chairs commit themselves to give a statement at a particular time. They give their own deadlines. They should actually keep it. Now, unfortunately, I can't see either of them. So therefore, I will ask the majority whip. What is it, majority whip? I can see you are pointing one finger salute elsewhere. I know you used to be in that particular one, but I think it must be for something else today.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I am not in any position to tell you where the chair is, but Honorable Speaker, as a whip, I'm disturbed in the sense that Honorable Didmas Barasa is a member of this committee. And I was just wondering, who will know better, because I was just going to imagine that being a member of this committee, he should have even used internal committee mechanism to get the answer to this question, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, I was even going to ask Honorable Didmas Barasa to help us to know where the chair and the vice chair are, because I think he, as a member of that committee, I think it's, he is more closer and, to the chairman, and he will know where the chairman is much faster than we are.
That actually, that brings another angle to this particular one, really, because I didn't know that the particular member was a member of that committee. But in any case, even if that is the case, that doesn't stop him from utilizing the avenues on the floor, because members must work and also be seen to work, even by their own constituents. But let me see, I can see there are a few members who want to speak, because that's really a live issue. I know sometimes members ask even questions directed at CSS on committees which they oversight, which is perfectly in order, but there are also avenues, other avenues they can use. Let me, what is it, Honorable Mabonga Mwambu? Then I come to Honorable Mwambu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My concern is slightly different, but it concerns the same committee, Mr. Speaker.
No, I wanted us to, if it is something different, I will give you an opportunity.
Kindly, Mr. Speaker, because it's now 2 months down the line, I have not gotten the response from the same committee.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I rose here, Mr. Speaker.
What is it that you had requested? Is it a
I actually
statement or
rose here
a question?
sometimes 2 months ago, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to know why the Minister or the CS of Interior has not posted the officers, security officers, in some of the cassetted divisions in my constituents 2 months down the line, because one of the reasons why I was asking, because of the insecurity that I'm experiencing even up to now. I have not received any response to date, Mr. Speaker.
Was that a question or a statement?
It was a question, Mr. Speaker.
A question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
A question would obviously be slightly different, because that one will have to be, we would be asking why the specific CS has not responded. And I'm looking at you now and Honorable Barasa and the vice chair of the same committee, and I see that you are neighbors, both where you sit and also where you come from. It surprises me that you are not able to quickly, but that's a serious issue. I would want to know, and I wish the chair was here. Probably in this particular, and I'll be asking some of the members of the committee, including Didmas Barasa himself, why that particular question has not been answered. Is there an issue between the committee and the CS, or peers for that matter? But let me give Honorable Milemba.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I think the statement that Honorable Baraza sought for is actually for public good, given that accidents have increased. And the fact that there was a promissory note on the deadline on when the statement would be given is sufficient enough to actually give some orders to that particular chair. Honorable Speaker, even if Honorable Baraza is a member of that particular committee, I don't think that it is good or proper for the Chief Whip to say that then Honorable Baraza should use the internal mechanism to have this question answered, Honorable Speaker, because I want to believe Honorable Baraza asked this question for the public good and not for the personal good. And I find that methodology sought by the Chief Whip being unorthodox, because that would be a private matter for private understanding. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, I hear you. Honorable Dr. Makali.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to confirm that Honorable Barasa is a member of that committee. And I think I agree with you, Honorable Speaker, that he has a right to ask his statement from this floor, even though he would have gained more, even raising the same matter in the committee, because he's one of the members who question the CS on a regular basis as compared to the rest of us, who might just be seeing the CS from TV screens. But I think, Honorable Speaker, you must also realize that if you look at all the questions which have been raised in this floor of the House, actually almost over 50% of them are security related. So there's a long queue in terms of questions. And at times also, Honorable Speaker, I think it's something we need to discuss as a House, because this particular CS is still coordinating all government development. So you can imagine the kind of workload he has. And I know at times members are not very comfortable when it comes to getting answers from the so-called CA, they are called what? CAS. So at times we are in that dilemma that you want the CS to come, at times it's just someone we have a meeting for this other CS. So it puts the committee in a kind of a tricky situation. And I think it's something we might have really to discuss, whether we could allow that option where the CS could be answering the questions, but members at times demand that the CS must be there. Those are my inputs.
Okay, let's put it this way. I think you go the old way that always a promise is a debt, and the Vice Chair is here. I would want to hear from him when he intends to do that. But on the issue of whether Honorable Didymus Barasa, who is a member of the committee, can be able to ask a question or request a statement, he is neither here nor there. I mean, he has a right. And I'm sure very soon and soon enough, I believe by 31st of this month, when our own speaker will be launching the live broadcast of committee proceedings, many members will therefore recede even to will go back to their committees and even, canvass some of these things in their own committees. I can see the dilemma for members. Obviously, they also want to know, they want their constituents to know that other than them working, they should also be seen to work. So Honorable Barasa, I think, is in order. He can only use the mechanisms. He can use mechanisms to improve. He can ask his own chair, both at the committee level and also when they are doing things in their neighborhood. I can tell you Honorable Barasa and Honorable Vice Chair are neighbors, even at the constituency level. But since this is a matter of national concern, I think it is something that should be brought to the House and the statement be made. Now, let's hear from the Vice Chair. You made a promise. I believe that one you can confirm. Why is it that you have not been able to give the statement? And when are you likely to give the statement?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Barasa's question, Honorable Speaker, is a concern to us as a committee, and it's a national issue. The question that he raised is pertinent, and I promise that in 2 weeks' time, we were to answer him. But Honorable Speaker, this week we have been very busy, and as you know, we had some visitors from several countries, almost 70 countries that visited our committee. We finished the conference yesterday, Mr. Speaker. And Barasa is one of us on the Committee of Administration and National Security. He was also there yesterday in the meeting where the Minister Matiang'i closed this meeting at about 5. So, Honorable Speaker, we are ready to answer his question, and probably next week we are going to answer Honorable Barasa.
Well, I am aware it was not a question, it was a statement that was sought. Now, can we fix a date that you'll be ready to make the statement? Because you see, if it is a question, and this is something I need to be clear about, if it is a question, you know, it is something that is dependent on someone else.
Honorable Speaker, I can promise on 17th, we are going to answer, that statement, Mr. Speaker.
17th?
Yes, sir.
Now let's hear from Honorable Barasa. That's a fixed date, so I think it would be good enough, really. That's about a week and a half from now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. But I just want to bring to the attention of the House that it's clear that we are not the persons to draft that statement. That statement it should be drafted by the ministry. And whether we, as a committee we are busy or not, it doesn't stop the ministry from functioning, Honorable Speaker. The delay is affecting our oversight role, is delaying our representation role, Honorable Speaker, and I don't think that the government can take 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks to provide a statement on something that they do on every day's basis. Whether we will travel today as a committee, whether the chair will be attending a conference for the whole of next week as a committee, that doesn't affect the deadline and the time that the government should take, that the ministry should take to provide a statement. You know, Honorable Speaker, we are behaving as if the chair of the committee is the one to draft the statement. The chair of the committee is just to relay the statement from the ministry to this house. And really, Honorable Speaker, that should not take even more than 2 and 3 days. So I'm not satisfied, Honorable Speaker. I'm very well worried that this is delaying.
Looking at it, Honorable Barasa, today is 9th. That is, it's going to be Thursday next week, really. It's good that that's a fixed date, that we know that on that day, we should be expecting a statement. Well, what you have said is a generalized statement, which I actually support you, that you see, matters will proceed, never mind the fact that we have other activities. But of course, as I've said, even the unavailability of the chair and the vice chair early this morning can be attributed to the work they were doing, and it's really a good and major conference they were having. And we, of course, which I would expect you would be there. But I'm not in any way trying to say that they have an excuse not to have presented a statement. So let's fix it for Thursday. I think it's something that we can easily agree. Your neighbors behave like good neighbors who really, seed grounds for themselves. Yeah, so I think, and since you are also a member of that committee, please, you make sure that you push it so that when it is being answered, when the statement will be given here, it will not be a statement to you, it will be a statement to Kenyans, and therefore the rest of them. It now is owned by the House, not you. So for the purpose of other members, never mind the fact that you are in that committee, the House would want to hear what the chair and the vice chair have to say about that one. So I think that one we can leave it for now. Is there anything else, something different on the one by Honorable Mwambu? I think you did not give us something on that, Honorable Vice Chair. Mwambu also had an issue that he probably asked a question, is it 2 months ago? Yeah. Well, but that it is easier for us not to expect a straight answer from the Vice Chair, but let him take that as a concern, that Honorable Mwambu says he has asked a question and it has not been answered. You look at it, Honorable Vice Chair, and see what you can do to fast track it. You don't really need to fix yourself on this one. Yeah, yes, you have it.
I stand guided, Mr. Speaker, but let him also give us 2 weeks, because we have been busy with the conference, but now I think we are almost...
I would have been very reluctant for you to give yourself a timeline on that, because it's not dependent on you, it's dependent on somebody else. But since you've done it yourself, that's okay with us.
2 weeks, Honorable Speaker.
Okay.
We'll answer him.
Okay. Then we can. What is it again, honorable members? Let's go to the next order. What is it? Let's start with the Honorable Chair of Energy, and then I come to you, because I see in the queue is ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. First, I totally agree with you on your directive regarding Baraza as a member of a committee and whether he can. I did one day ask a question in my own committee, and the Speaker came to my defense, and he said I have a right as a member of Parliament of Nakuru Town East to ask that question, and I think you are perfectly in order. But Honorable Speaker, I don't know whether a question has reached your desk regarding the directive by the Cabinet Secretary Education on closure of some of these schools. Honorable Speaker, in the standing order, when we changed the standing order, I asked that to be urgent, and I have not seen, I don't know whether it has reached your desk or the table office, because, Honorable Speaker, on Monday, yes, there was a huge demonstration in my constituency because of the schools which were closed by, of course, following the directive by the Cabinet Secretary. And yesterday when I was talking to the Chair, Committee on Education, he had said that they were invited the Cabinet Secretary tomorrow, and I'm made to understand tomorrow is a public holiday. And the urgency of the matter, because, Honorable Speaker, there are kids who have only 3 weeks, others are doing their exams, and they are out of their schools. And we were asking for some timelines to be given. Instead of closing the schools, timelines to be given, allow these kids to complete the few weeks, and then the schools be given timelines to comply with the directives and the requirements of the ministry. And it's unfortunate that there are so many kids now. I was reading the newspaper, about 10,000 across the country. And Honorable Speaker, I don't think that is right. And also the Children Under the Children's Act has some protection, Honorable Speaker. So a fact that it was unfortunate that what happened here in a school, Precious Academy in Nairobi, but at the same time we need to consider the welfare of these kids. In fact, on Monday when I engaged the county director of education, she was saying that the children should go to another school, disregarding the environmental change, and it just doesn't call for kids to be transferred. It is too much of that. So maybe we could be able to, I don't know, maybe I'd ask a question that was supposed to be urgent on that matter, so that at least we can get directive for purposes.
What question did you ask? Did you ask it by private members, private members question, or the ordinary question?
I think then I might not have read properly the standing order. I just asked a normal question, but I asked it to be urgent.
Yes.
As per the standing order.
Well, the only way that we can know how urgent it is supposed to be is when you make the determination on how you approach the question. If it is a private member's question, it will be much faster. Of course, you know that.
Okay.
But luckily, I see you are sitting next to the chair, education. And I'm surprised you are saying that you actually discussed with him yesterday, and yet you are seated next to him. I am surprised that you are not even discussing with him when he's just your desk mate there. But let's hear what the chair education has to say. Because unfortunately, if the question is not on the order paper, there is very little we can do.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know the matter that Honorable Member for Nakuru Town is raising is very weighty. It is a matter of national concern because, one, actually the ministry had to take those stern actions because it is better to have a live student than a dead one. Because we've seen some schools which are actually ramshackles, which are actually waiting to, disaster waiting to happen. So when the ministry took that action, I think it was better for them to close those schools. However, there are instances where, Mr. Speaker, we asked the ministry to come before the committee so that they can give us the various steps he's taking so that they can safeguard the 10,000 or 20,000 students who are out there who are supposed to sit for KCP. What steps have they taken to ensure that these students and time and revision is not lost? So they had actually agreed that they shall come before us, but I know tomorrow is a gazetted national holiday, and therefore I think we are going to reschedule the meeting. And I'll invite my friend and colleague, Honorable Gikaria, to come and also listen from the CS when the time comes. Thank you.
Okay, and that should be material whether his question will have been processed or not. Because if you will be doing it on your own motion, for example, because to me it looks like you had asked the minister or the CS to come on his own motion, on your own motion yourselves. So even if the question will not have been processed, kindly invite Honorable Gikaria so that he can raise his concerns before the committee. And I hope it's going to be soon because, look, from where I sit, I think it's an extremely urgent issue because the examinations are next in the next few days. Well, I will not. I don't think I need to give you any more on this one, Honorable Gikaria. Surely, I think that is a matter which you can canvass with your colleague seated close to you. You can be seeing how quick that matter can be done because it's not even an issue of a summon. This is an issue of a request that the CS should appear before the committee, and that matter can be discussed. So I see Honorable Kemosi. And that should be the last one, honorable members. I think we are taking too much time on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My concern is also similar to one raised by Honorable Barasa. Honorable Speaker, on the 24th of April this year, I raised question number 183 of 2019, and the same was directed to the Cabinet Secretary, Interior and the National Coordination, Honorable Speaker. But 2-3 months after the CAS appeared, and he casually gave a response, and indeed sought for more time to respond. When he failed about 1.5 months ago, I raised this similar issue on the floor of the House, and the chairman said they were to respond within about 2-3 weeks. Nothing has been forthcoming, Honorable Chair, because this was a question that was concerning security in a supplication whose assistant chief died 3 years ago, and no step has been taken to indeed replace the said assistant chief. The entire occasion does not have a chief who was interdicted about a month ago. The security situation is quite worse, and I have a lot of pressure from the ground, Honorable Speaker. I think the committee has failed. The ministry has also failed, and for that purpose, Honorable Speaker, given the pressure that I've received from the ground, and through a letter addressed to the Principal Secretary last week, I've called the residents of that particular sub-location for a meeting on 11th of this month, and we will definitely do what is best to us to elect an acting assistant chief for that particular sub-location until such a time when the ministry substantively appoints the assistant chief, and then we can stand that acting assistant chief down, because I failed, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, well, whatever you do in terms of having a meeting on 11th or otherwise is not, well, I would be very surprised if you say that you are going to really move ahead with what you've said, that you would want to elect an assistant chief. I would be surprised. And secondly, you asked your question in April, and you say there has been some answer of some sort which you are not satisfied with. And then you said again there was development somewhere down the line about a month ago, again, a chief was interdicted. A lot of development which is, you know, happening so quickly, even for the committee to catch up with it, because you had a problem with assistant chief. Now you have another problem with a chief who was interdicted a month ago after you had asked a question 5 months ago. Now, those are fairly confusing situations and scenarios, but I think the Vice Chair again is here, is able to listen to that. I hope he's going to take steps, at least to have you have a good answer for the question you asked in April. But as to this one of the chief being interdicted, that would be a different and separate question. So, really, what is it that you want to say about that, the Vice Chair? Why is it that it has delayed?
Thank you, Honorable.
That's where you should only confine yourself.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think the member is a bit confused, because he's saying that the minister visited or replied the question that he asked, but he gave a short answer. There is no short answer, Mr. Speaker, from the minister that he can give to the member, and there is no election, as far as I know, Mr. Speaker, about electing the assistant chief. I think that's where I say that maybe the member has not planned properly to ask this question, or that is why it delayed. And if, again, the chief was interdicted, the chief cannot just be interdicted, Mr. Speaker, without making a mistake. So I think, to put the record clear, Mr. Speaker, we are going to answer his questions, and I think at this time, because already the minister appeared and answered the question, also, although he's saying it was shoddy, we are asking for 3 weeks to answer the member properly.
I am a bit concerned with the, you know, you are putting all the questions in the next 3 weeks. I think you might be okay.
Yeah, you know, it's long, Mr. Speaker. I think, or I can even ask for a month, 4 weeks, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, please prepare, let's have a question, the question answered. Okay, so before we move to the next order, let me recognize in the public gallery students from Sophos Community School, Ruiru constituency of Kiambu. We also have students, I think in the public gallery actually, of Malami Primary School, Mavoko constituency of Machakos County. And on that note, I had seen the member for Mavoko. What is it that you wanted?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, me too, a month ago, I had posed a question to the Minister, Intersolidation and Cooperatives, concerning why he has not appointed a member of the board representing small shareholders for the last 5 years. And again, Mr. Speaker, I had sought him to explain why, even after the lease of East Africa Poland having lapsed, he has continued to let them sell the land. Mr. Speaker, the Land Act is very clear. Once a lease lapses, there cannot be any other reason for that particular lessee to sell the land
so I don't
or
want you
purport.
to go to details, Honorable Member.
So,
from
Mr.
Mavoko.
Speaker,
Yes.
it is now 1 month ago, and the same company...
Is that when you asked the question?
Yes.
And was it a private member's question or an ordinary member's question?
Yes.
It's
Mr.
an ordinary one?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can't see the chairman here, Mr. Speaker.
Well, that will be communicated. I'll ask the majority whip to communicate to the chair and see how we can fast track it. Please, let's leave it at that. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Thank you very much.
I'm giving no more members, so we will move to the next order.
Order number 8, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2019, second reading.
For this particular one, I think we had 28 minutes remaining. The member who was on the floor was Honorable Ngeno of Transmara. He has a balance of 8 minutes. He is absent, so we will give the next available member. We probably will give Honorable Yusuf Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this bill brought to the House by Honorable Ndidi Nyoro. I'd like to say that, in fact, corruption is the biggest threat that is facing our country today. I would say that corruption is a threat to our national security. It's a threat to our peace and stability, and therefore we need to do whatever is necessary to fight it so that we can move ahead as a country. I would say that it is a threat to our national security because corrupt officials open our borders, have a lax attitude to the issue of national security because of corruption. People die for lack of medicine because someone has taken money and sold their medicines. People suffer in schools and education because someone has been paid a bribe and corruption has taken place. And therefore, it is an issue that I think is even a bigger threat than some of the other threats that we have placed at the top list of our country's situation. For example, terrorism. So, and this disease, this corrupt disease, cannot simply be dealt with by legal means. Legislation is not enough. What we need is to change that culture, that culture that does not see corruption or bribe, kitu kidogo, as a threat and a danger to the ethics of our country, to the well-being of our country. And that's why we need to have legislations, but they must be backed up by the necessary actions that would reinforce and remove in the minds of many Kenyans this culture of corruption that is ingrained and rooted deeply in our society and our psyches. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in addition to the legislations that we pass here, unless we are able to do a civic education unless we're able to say corruption is not acceptable, unless we have a zero tolerance, and we make sure that we start teaching the necessity to be upright and to be honest and to be ethical, down from our nursery schools up to our universities, we'll not be able to fight corruption just by merely passing legislation. Recently, you saw quite a large number of, this is not a problem only for ordinary people in the streets. It also permeates at the highest level of our society. Recently, you saw one of the universities giving away PhDs as if it was, you were distributing sweets in the streets. And when you look at that, you would see that again, even at the level of our top institutions of learning, corruption is rooted. In our public institutions, corruption is rooted. In our police force, every day, there's really nothing you can do without paying kitu kidogo. So we really need to address this issue comprehensively at every level, and to supplement what we are doing in terms of legislation by imposing rules and regulations and campaigning openly so that we deal with this issue once and for all. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, that I like to say about corruption is the fact that people don't think that it is a problem. They don't think it is a problem because even in some traditions and cultures, the idea of giving something is ingrained in that culture and is a requirement in that particular community. So we need really to go to the root problem of this particular case. You also would say that Kenyans are very hardworking. Kenyans are working day and night. We're an entrepreneurial country. People are working hard in whatever they do in their businesses, in their jobs, in their studies. But when you go outside this country, Mr. Speaker, people would tell you, we are about to lift up economically as a country, we're about to take off. But when you speak to people, what they tell you is that you're doing well as a country in Kenya, but you have a problem of corruption. So corruption has become synonymous with our brand, with our name. And that's why it is absolutely necessary for us to take the cultural, legal, political actions that will make corruption the thing of the past. And now is the time to start, and I thank the Member of Parliament for bringing this particular issue to have an amendment, but I believe we need to go beyond the legislation, to go to a cultural campaign, an ethical and moral rearmament so that we can fight and roll back this particular disease that is eating into our body, our national body, and damaging our reputation and our aspiration as a country to become a well-developed, successful country among the nations of the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I am looking for members who've not spoken to this one because I see 19 of them. Honorable Cheruyot, had you spoken to this one? Member for Baringo. Don't get too engrossed with what the member 001 is. Don't get too engrossed. I can see that. But had you spoken on this one? Do you want to speak to it?
I have not spoken on this one.
Okay, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, matters corruption is, these are issues we talk about them day in, day out, year in, year out. Mr. Speaker, sir, when we want to bring any other matter or legislation or regulations on corruption, I don't think we are doing anything different from what our laws are on corruption. The only thing that I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, must be done is we need to do what we call culture change and attitude change. Because unless we change the way we do things, unless we change the way we think about how to approach issues in this country, then corruption is here to stay with us. It is so unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this corruption is affecting our education standards. It affects the health of the people. It affects economy in this country. And somehow, it is unfortunate that the people who are purported or alleged to be corrupt are the ones who call the shots in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, even the community does not actually encourage or like the people who don't have money. It is unfortunate that when people go and steal, come back, even ask for votes when we are vying, then they seem to be the ones to actually be liked and given votes by the community. Mr. Speaker, sir, matters corruption. I was looking at what we were, the committee on justice, legal justice, was bringing on an academy, an international academy on corruption. Then I was wondering, this academy, who shall be the lecturer there or the teacher there? Because I don't know who is this that shall be pure to be in that institution to give the right morals to this society, Mr. Speaker, sir. When we talk of economic crimes, I want to bring an issue about Nakumatt supermarket, which collapsed a few years ago. I don't know, after the collapse of that institution or that business entity, how many people suffered in terms of the employees who are working there, how many people suffered in terms of the people who are supplying that institution or that supermarket, and what has this country done? Because if we are talking of economic crimes, I want to believe there must be something that happened that affected the economy of the many thousands of people who are working in that supermarket. And up to date, we don't know the fate of Kenyans. We don't know the fate of Kenyans who are working in that supermarket, that's Nakumatt, up to date, if they were paid, if their dues were paid, if they are suffering, and what are their undertakings. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the unfortunate part about corruption in this country, like when we are demolishing people's buildings in the cities, like the ones which have happened some years back or months, you wonder, up to the date that building is coming up to completion, where were the institutions which are concerned? You realize it's all about corruption. And once you have done that, somebody builds a multi-billion building, and then as if it happened within a night, it is demolished after some months or years. Nobody wants to look at, sometimes we punish the investors, never looking at who exactly signed or gave the authority to whichever entity to develop that place. And Mr. Speaker, I want to believe with these demolitions that happened sometimes back, and others are yet to happen, I want to believe there are people even who have lost lives because of the stresses that came thereafter after they have been affected by the demolitions. And not forgetting, probability is very high that they even parted with some money before they were able to construct the whatever investment they were doing. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time as Kenyans we become truthful to ourselves, we bring the culture change, we change our attitude. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to wish that this particular matter on corruption and economic crime, can it even be made a lesson in a classroom so that our young people are brought up actually understanding what exactly corruption is? Because in some instances, Mr. Speaker, sir, when some students or pupils are asked the best way, as a question, what can be the best way of acquiring wealth? Some of them can answer you and say it is through corruption. Why don't we make this a subject in a classroom where our young children can be modeled so that they grow being different from these other ones who are not taught about corruption? I also want to bring a challenge to the clergies of this country and at churches, mosques, and all places where people go and worship. I think it is also important that in such places where we call sacred places, that the clergy takes it up, corruption, as a sin, and makes it one of the things to actually teach the followers in those particular places they worship in. So that at least the congregation, because that is where most of Kenyans actually meet, so that they can be taught. Because I want to believe corruption and stealing is the same thing. After all, corruption kills. And that is why we've seen currently what Ministry of Education is doing is going around closing schools, which are probably going to fall anytime soon, and it's endangering people's lives. But it isn't that these schools were built yesterday. They have been there. We have inspectors who visit those schools. And it isn't that you cannot see the danger in your naked eyes. But for a long time, they have not been doing anything until something happens that we rush to do something. This country should start becoming proactive other than being reactive. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is something that at times when you start thinking about, you feel you don't know what exactly you should do. At the prosecution level, in our courts, in the investigation department, right things must be done. When someone has been alleged to be corrupt, when people sometimes see the facts from outside, I know unless somebody is proven guilty, that person cannot be judged. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, unfortunately, when people go through a court process, then the thing hits up like what has happened last year and this year, the Friday arrests. After some time, things just go quiet, and people are like, okay, so this thing does not take somebody somewhere or anywhere. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we need to be serious from all the arms of the government, executive, legislative, to make the right laws, and the courts of judiciary to actually prosecute as required. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support.
Okay, we'll have Honorable Badi Twalib, and Honorable Twalib will have only 5 minutes because the mover must reply at 10:35.
Sawa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii, japo umenipunguzia muda kwa dakika 5, lakini nitatumia vilivyo. Kwanza nataka kuunga mkono mswada huu kwa kusema, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuwa mambo ya ufisadi sio mambo mazuri kufanyika katika nchi yoyote ile, na ni vizuri sana kuona kile kitengo cha kupambana na mambo ya ufisadi kuwa kimeweza kufanya kazi yake bila kuogopa, na vile vile kutumia fursa kuona kuwa mambo ya ufisadi watoto wetu mpaka kwenye mashule wanaweza kufundishwa ili waweze kujua kama hii si tabia mzuri kufanya katika nchi inayoendelea. Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, nikitoka kwenye mambo ya ufisadi naingia katika hii mada ya economic crime, yani uhalifu wa kiuchumi, kwa Kiswahili naweza kusema namna hiyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naona mswada huu uko sawa sawa kabisa, kwa sababu nikiwa mbunge kutoka pale Mombasa, kuna mambo ambayo yamenigusa Mheshimiwa Spika. Na katika hali hii tukiangalia katika mambo ya kiuchumi, watu wa Mombasa tumeweza kuumizwa sana kulingana na hali ilivyo kwa wakati huu. Tukiangalia mambo ya SGR, mambo ya kubeba makasha, wafanyabiashara wetu hivi sasa wamewezwa kufanya kuwa hawawezi kufanya biashara kwa njia huru, na kwa maana hiyo inakuwa ni hujuma ya kiuchumi. Kwa maana hiyo, nikiwa mbunge wa Jomvu, nasema kuwa jambo kama hili hatutaweza kulikubali. Ni lazima serikali iweke huru katika watu kufanya biashara njia yoyote ile ambayo anataka kutumia. Ikiwa mtu anataka kutumia malori, atumie malori. Ikiwa mtu anataka kutumia SGR, atumie SGR, lakini mambo ya kulazimishana yasifanyike katika nchi hii. Na leo mimi nasema katika mambo haya, Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali imesema kuwa imesimamisha mambo haya, lakini tunaona mambo haya bado yanaendelea. Mpaka juzi kuna watu waliofanya maandamano na wameweza kushikwa. Nikiwa mbunge wa kitaifa, nikiwa mbunge ambaye naongoza katika sehemu ya constituency ya Jomvu, ambayo wafanyabiashara wa malori wengi sana wako hapo, nasema leo sisi watu wa Mombasa tutaichukulia hatua serikali ya Kenya ikiwa haitaki kutusikiza, tukapeleke mashtaka katika koti ya East Africa. Afrika Mashariki ina haki ya kusikiza shida yetu ikiwa nchi yetu haiwezi kutusikiza. Na vile vile kando na Afrika Mashariki, hata ICC twaweza pia kwenda, kwa sababu hii ni hujuma. Mheshimiwa Spika, hatuwezi kuishi katika hujuma ya kiuchumi katika nchi hii. Watu hawana kazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu hawawezi kusomesha watoto sasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, hivi sasa watu hawawezi kuishi katika manyumba yao. Kwa hivyo nachukua fursa hii Mheshimiwa kusema mswada huu na uunga mkono sana Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu utawezesha kuona kuwa mambo ya economic crime yataweza kuchukuliwa kwa hali ya sawa. Asanteni sana.
I'm standing on a point of order, Honorable Speaker, in terms of relevance. Honorable Speaker, in terms of relevance to the subject matter. That I agree with you. We should be discussing things that touches on corruption, because that is what this matter is all about. So let us stick to our standing orders. And you should be winding up, Honorable Twalib, your time is over.
Hiyo ni corruption, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo tukiangalia katika ufisadi, ni ufisadi wa SGR, kwa sababu kuambia SGR lazima ndio wapakie makasha peke yake na malori wasipakie, huo ni ufisadi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kusema leo bado niko within the bracket ya bili hii nikizungumza kuhusu mambo ya ufisadi. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema kuwa haiwezekani na ni ufisadi mkubwa kuambia watu wapakie makasha katika SGR lakini wasipakie kwenye malori. Kwa hivyo leo Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema twajitayarisha kuchukua serikali ya Kenya katika koti ya Afrika Mashariki mpaka tuwakomboe watu wa Mombasa. Asante na Mwenyezi Mungu atubariki, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante. Let's now have the mover to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to reply. But I would plead before I do so that I donate 2 minutes each to Honorable Gekaria and Honorable Major Bashir. 2 minutes each before I do so, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, you are perfectly in order. Honorable Gekaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank the mover of this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, protect me from these two members.
As I protect you, you have exactly 1 minute 40
Honorable
seconds.
Speaker, I want to agree with the mover of the bill. Honorable Speaker, if you remember in the last Parliament, Honorable Kangata had actually proposed for a death sentence for anybody involved in these kind of crimes. And the House, in its wisdom, decided to have not more than 10 years and not more than that is for the jail term, and for the fine, I think it is not more than 1 million. But, Honorable Speaker, but we also need to be very careful as members of Parliament. And we are saying this because sometimes the departments or the agencies who have been bestowed that responsibility to be able to undertake investigation, sometimes there could be malice, Honorable Speaker. So again, as we look into these laws and the sentence and the amendments as brought by Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, we also need to be very careful that, how I wish justice was done in a very fair and acceptable manner. Because sometimes we look at justice and the way it is done in this country, and you get scared. And the way these agencies undertake their responsibility. I totally agree with Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, but at the same time, we need to be very careful. Sometimes you might end up becoming a victim yourself if fairness is not being done properly. So, Honorable Speaker, how I wish that we'll be here in our numbers when we'll be making a decision to pass or not to pass this bill. But I totally agree that corruption is a vice that needs to be taken care of in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, next. Honorable Bashir.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know corruption in this country, and several speakers here and before have talked about that corruption is a cancer. And we know cancer doesn't have cure. So does that mean corruption doesn't have cure? Because we keep on talking about corruption is a cancer. And I think time has come for corruption to be dealt with in accordance with its effects on Kenyans. Why do we have cancer? Why do we have diseases in our country? Is because of corruption. Money or resources that will have gone to be used for treating Kenyans is being swindled. And the bill talks about penalties that individuals involved in corruption to be meted upon. While this is a good indication, but remember the judiciary also needs to have some leeway to be able to handle matters as they come. I mean, we have corruption, but corruptions differ. There are mega corruptions, and persons committing corruptions are not also the same. So as we support, we need to look at the nitty-gritties of the bill itself to see whether it is usurping the powers or the jurisdiction of the judiciary, for that matter. So, Mr. Speaker, as I support, but when it comes to the looking at the bill itself and during probably amendments or so, we need to look at how it affects the judiciary as an institution. Thank you.
Then we get back to Honorable Nyoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would have wished to donate more, but because of limitation of time, I'll just continue to reply. And Mr. Speaker, firstly, I want to thank all the members for their contribution to this bill, and especially my secretary, who is just seated right here, Honorable Sankok. We have also learned, even as the author of the bill, I have also learned several things insofar as enriching the fight against corruption is concerned. And I am sure even in the subsequent legislation, we will continue to make this war better and bolder. But Mr. Speaker, Rome was not built in a day. And therefore, any step in the right direction is the right step. And Mr. Speaker, I believe there is, and there are so many other ways that we can use in fighting graft, and especially economic crimes, Mr. Speaker, and corruption. But Mr. Speaker, we can be in a circus of improving this, of amending the other, until we get nothing done. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with my colleagues, because now this bill is very instrumental when it comes to fighting graft, and especially on the punitive side of fighting it, because we are increasing the years that one can be jailed from not more than 10 years to not less than 10 years. We are also increasing the fine from not more than 1 million to not less than 1 million. And even beyond that, Mr. Speaker, we have also input stiffer fines that if you are involved in graft, where, for example, you have stolen 1 billion, the fine will be double. the gain that you have gotten from the public coffers. And if you cause a loss of 1 billion of public money, then the fine will be double that. And Mr. Speaker, listening to many of my colleagues, I think the time has come to direct corruption and the fight against corruption where it should be. And Mr. Speaker, I very much commend members because, as you know, because of the nature of our work, being the representation of the people, anything that happens and goes wrong in this country, the first people to be pointed fingers is usually MPs, governors, MCAs, senators, and any other person who has majority support. But Mr. Speaker, most of corruption in this country happens beyond the people who are elected. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's upon time that we strengthen this fight because you have seen other countries that have strengthened and they have won. When I was moving, Mr. Speaker, I gave the example of Singapore, which I will not repeat. There is another clear example of South Korea, Mr. Speaker, where we have 2 former presidents serving jail terms. Mr. Speaker, we can give many, many other countless examples of countries that decided to liberate themselves from corruption, and the result was economic growth that trickled down to their population and the normal citizens of their countries. But Mr. Speaker, also, we have to know that beyond registering, there are 3 components, and especially that I'll give to a modern state. Because, Mr. Speaker, we can have so many laws, like we have in our country, but the buck stops somewhere, not just in registering. And the 3 components of a modern state, Mr. Speaker, one is by having a strong state itself. State apparatus that are strong. And Mr. Speaker, as I start here, I want to say that we have room for improvement in this country when it comes to a strong state. And a strong state, I mean, Mr. Speaker, where also, as I give number 2, which is rule of law, is implemented and enforced. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, which is accountability. And accountability comes many often times, and especially in democracy, when it comes to the election cycles. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what we need actually in this country to improve on, even as we register it, our state currently is very weak, Mr. Speaker. That is why we are having runaway corruption. Number 2, rule of law, Mr. Speaker. This country, and I can dare say, there is no rich person, there is no wealthy person who is in Kamete, who is in Shimoratewa, or any other jail in this country. Jails in this country are reserved for the poor because the rich can always buy justice. And Mr. Speaker, this is a total breakdown when it comes to the rule of law in this country. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, we have also to be dynamic because the corruption of independent time is different from the corruption that is happening now. The current mode of corruption, Mr. Speaker, number 1 is patronage. And that is why majority of the people actually strive to join government. Because you know, in comparative to other countries where people get rich by their entrepreneurial skills, by their ingenuity, and by their work, hard work, Mr. Speaker, in countries like Kenya, where the state is weak and there is no rule of law, Mr. Speaker, it is the other way around. Mr. Speaker, because of time, I seek to reply. Thank you very much.
Now, I am trying to ascertain if we have the numbers to put the question. We are just short of the required numbers, just short. So we probably will have to put it another time. Okay, so we move to the next order.
Order number 9, the Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Board Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2019, second reading.
Yes, let's have Honorable Bashir to move.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and the principal objective of this bill is to stimulate the marketing of livestock and livestock products in Kenya. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to move the Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Bill, Board Bill 2019. Mr. Speaker, the objective of this bill is to stimulate the marketing of livestock and livestock products in Kenya. This is in light of the fact that although the livestock industry is a very important source of income for many households in Kenya, its regulations is carried out by different entities, which most of the times leads to duplication and competition among the various entities. This end results into poor service delivery, and thus the main beneficiaries of the industry happen to be the middlemen instead of the livestock farmers. The stimulating of the industry is to be achieved through the establishment of the Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Promotion Board, which is to be the main body dealing with the concerns of the marketing of livestock and livestock products in the country. It is expected that this bill will result in an efficient livestock and livestock products marketing industry in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this bill was first published on the 8th February 2019, and it was read the first time in the National Assembly on 20th March 2019. It was then committed pursuant to Standing Order 127.1 to the Agriculture Committee for public participation. And I'm glad that the said stakeholders' participation was done by the Committee of Agriculture. The committee's report was laid on the House, and I'm sure and I hope that members have gone through the report as it was laid out. Mr. Speaker, when you talk of the livestock contribution to GDP is 12%. All the other sectors, when you talk of Tea Board of Kenya, Coffee Board of Kenya, Bioethanol Board of Kenya, all those have boards of their own. Unfortunately, livestock has been left out hanging. There is no such board for livestock, despite the fact that the GDP contribution is 12%. The sector is not regulated and thus creates lack of synergy between the producers and the market. With the abundance of livestock, we will have sourced, for example, markets outside the country. But simply because we don't have a structure, we don't have systems, and we don't have a board, that's why our livestock products cannot fetch international markets. In 2016, there was an executive order by the president for creation of this board. However, the ministry concerned to date has not acted upon. And so, this bill will give it the fine touch that is needed so that we anchor it in law. Honorable Speaker, the bill is in tandem with the Vision 2030, part of the Big Four agenda. Over 80% of Kenya's landmass is arid and semi-arid, and livestock is the main source of livelihoods in those areas. Even areas which are non-ASAL, livestock constitutes an important source of family income and food security. So when we have this kind of board in place, the gaps that the livestock farmers have faced before will be addressed. Every now and then we hear of the government offsetting or assisting tea farmers and coffee farmers, cotton, pyrethrum. We have never had a situation whereby livestock farmers are assisted the same way the other sectors are assisted. It's only because there's no board. All these other sectors, they have board to agitate for their rights. And I'm sure there's no household in Kenya where there are no livestock products. So I hope and believe that once this board is put into operation, we will be able to tap into the vast market that is outside Kenya. We have a lot of livestock, a number of them. Unfortunately, when drought comes, they all die. Even off-take programs for those livestock is not in place. The drought that is about to end has killed several livestock. If we had a body or a board that would have looked into this matter, I am sure the farmers, livestock farmers, would not have gone at a loss. We have markets in the Middle East, we have markets in Europe. Our products cannot fetch because of lack of standardization. Look at a country like Somalia. It's able to take its livestock to the Middle East. Yet it's a country which is unstable. We have been independent since 1963. And yet we don't have a streamlined livestock board that takes care of the livestock farmers. We have a lot of surplus of livestock. We can't consume all the livestock in Kenya. So the rest goes to West. Or farmers are left with livestock and then drought comes and it sweeps away. So this bill essentially is to ensure that we have this kind of board so that we streamline all the aspects of marketing and production. When I look at the composition of the board, and this is drawn from the fact that we need expertise, the board shall consist of the following members. One is the chairperson. Two is the principal secretary in the ministry responsible for livestock or their representative. The principal secretary in the ministry responsible for finance and their representative. Two persons nominated by the Council of Governors with knowledge on livestock matters, since livestock is also devolved. Two persons appointed by the Cabinet Secretary, taking into consideration the principles of gender and regional balance and having experience in the livestock sector.
Order. As you proceed, I have received requests from the chair, delegated legislation, and she will be laying the paper in the next 30 minutes. So at that point, we will have to interrupt so you can proceed.
Thank you. One person nominated by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. One person nominated by the Kenya Livestock Marketing Council. Lastly, the Chief Executive Officer, who shall be an ex-officio member. When you look at the composition of the members of the board, it reflects expertise and also reflects government involvement as far as the sector is concerned. We are also talking about a situation whereby we are saying the chairperson shall be appointed by the president, but with the approval of the National Assembly, so that the person who will be the chair will also have accountability to the people's representative. And that is very critical. Mr. Speaker, this is a very straightforward bill. I know last Parliament it came up and it did not see the light of the day. I am very happy that the Agriculture Committee has conducted stakeholders' participation, especially the Ministry of Livestock. And looking at the report tabled by the Agriculture Committee, I have seen concerns or amendments to that effect by the Ministry of Agriculture. They are welcome. But one thing that I have noted with concern is the resistance by the executive, especially the Ministry of Livestock, to derail this board. At some point in time, even to the effect of saying we can have directors or directorate to be housed within the ministry. Since 1963, we have had the same Ministry of Livestock. And the name livestock is the main name in that ministry. Unfortunately, they have never handled matters livestock as it should be. So as we go through this bill, remember, every household in this country has livestock. We recognize that certain parts of the country have more livestock products than the other, but no household has nil. Let's see the bigger picture of ensuring that this board sees the light of the day, so that our livestock products can be consumed here in Kenya when it is healthy, stimulated, and above all, we tap into the international market. It's unfortunate that countries, our neighboring countries, products are sold in the international market. Ours cannot, simply because we have no standards, simply because we have no board to take care of the sector. As I move, I call upon the members to look into this matter and support the bill. I call upon the Chair of Agriculture, Honorable Adan, to second. Thank you.
Honorable Adan.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. As I rise to second the Livestock and Livestock Product Marketing Board Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2019. This is a bill sponsored by Honorable Bashir, and it seeks to streamline the marketing of livestock and livestock products in Kenya. It establishes the Livestock and Livestock Product Marketing Promotion Board, which is to be the main body dealing with the marketing and livestock products in the country. Mr. Speaker, the bill was first published on 7th February 2019 and was read a first time in the National Assembly on the 20th March of 2019. Following the first reading in the National Assembly, it stood committed to our committee pursuant to Standing Order 127.1 and deliberation, and we began to prosecute the bill. Mr. Speaker, the committee held a public participation meeting with the stakeholders on the 29th June 2019 and received oral and written submission from the State Department for Livestock. Mr. Speaker, the committee then considered all the comments, weighed them based on their merits, incorporated some, rejected others. Mr. Speaker, most importantly, the justification for rejection of comments from stakeholders are provided in the committee's report, which was laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 2nd October 2019. Mr. Speaker, in the committee's report, there are proposed amendments to the bill that have been outlined in line with the observation and recommendations made by the committee during the review of the bill. Mr. Speaker, there will be a number of amendments and the committee will be proposing, but I would like at this juncture to highlight just a few. Mr. Speaker, Clause 6(1)(f) of the bill provides that one of the members of the proposed Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Board shall be one person nominated by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. However, the specific mention of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance is inadvisable since it might necessitate amendments to the Act if the status of the alliance changes. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the use of the word umbrella body representing private sector will address these concerns. Similar amendments will apply to Clause 6(1)(g) in relation to be one person nominated by the Kenya Livestock Marketing Council. Mr. Speaker, 2, the bill does not provide for the qualification of the chairpersons of the board. The committee will therefore be proposing amendments to Clause 6 of the bill to provide for the qualifications of the chairpersons of the board. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, there are a number of amendments which will enhance the effectiveness of the provisions of the bill, such as provisions for the board to co-opt experts, Mr. Speaker, a provision to provide that the Chief Executive Officer shall hold office for a term of 3 years, renewable for one.
What is it, Honorable Amalwa, member for Kiminini? You have pressed an intervention. No, Honorable Amalwa. You cannot say you are scratching yourself, and so you accidentally put an intervention. Yes, you may proceed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Amalwa. I know he was just following the proceedings. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that is timely and needs to be enforced, Mr. Speaker. There was a bill in the 11th Parliament that is related to the same subject matter, known as the Livestock and Livestock Product Development and Marketing Bill 2016, sponsored by Honorable Abdinur Mohammed Ali, MP, Mr. Speaker. However, the bill lapsed at the end of the term of the 11th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this House has another opportunity to enact this legislation. I wish to congratulate Honorable Major Bashir Abdullahi for resuscitating this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are many reasons why, as a committee, we felt that this bill is very critical to the livestock sector, Mr. Speaker, because large part of Kenya is arid and semi-arid, and it carries over 50% of livestock and 25% of the Kenya's human population, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most ASAL inhabitants are also pastoralists, Mr. Speaker, and mainly depend on livestock as a source of livelihood. Mr. Speaker, despite many resources available in ASAL's region, especially livestock, the region is characterized by high poverty levels, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, this bill will certainly play a critical role of translating livestock resources into some meaningful wealth, Mr. Speaker, so that the needs and wants of the livestock farmers in this region are met, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, livestock farmers face myriads of challenges in this country. Among them is the distance from marketplaces, Mr. Speaker. And this bill, and the board for that matter, will seek to help bridge this gap between the market and the marketplace, Mr. Speaker. We also have exploitation by the middlemen, Mr. Speaker, on this issue of livestock farmers, Mr. Speaker. Not to mention the low prices as a result of often uncontrollable factors of the vagaries of climate change, Mr. Speaker. And so we are saying this bill is timely because it seeks to tamper mainly with these important issues, which are challenges to the pastoralist farmer. Mr. Speaker, there are important roles played by livestock sector in the ASAL, and amongst the pastoralists, it provides obvious meat and milk products, and also provides or contributes immensely to the Big Four agenda, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, livestock. And I see agitation by members from other agricultural sector areas. Agriculture as a sector is dead. Mr. Speaker, livestock farmers have been feeling the wrath of the issue or the lack of attention by the government. And now, Mr. Speaker, other sectors of the economy, other sectors of agriculture is also ailing. Mr. Speaker, tea farmers are in problems. Coffee sector is dead. Pyrethrum sector is dead. Sugar sector is ailing. Mr. Speaker, cotton industry is kaput. Mr. Speaker, maize, you know the perennial issue we have with the maize. Rice also is a problem. Mr. Speaker, dairy products sector is also ailing. Mr. Speaker, we need serious intervention by the state to be able to help the agriculture again come back to where it used to be. Mr. Speaker, we see agitation by individual sectors. There was the collapse of all these boards into what now is called AFA. Mr. Speaker, the committee is seized of 3 bills. One is from Sugar Board, Sugar Board bill, and there is Tea Board bill, Mr. Speaker.
You second. Your time is gone. Let him pronounce himself to that.
So, Mr. Speaker, AFA.
No, Honourable Member.
I finish. As I finish, Mr. Speaker, just once, half a second. The tea sector is, the tea bill is with us. The sugar bill is with us. It seems AFA is actually dead. And so this livestock bill is very timely, and I want to urge members to support it. And with those few remarks, I second. Thank you.
Very well, honourable members, I propose a question, which is that the Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Board Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2019, be now laid a second time. We shall start with Honourable Amin Kasim.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity today to expound more on this bill, which I intend to support. Honourable Speaker, the Livestock Board and the creation of this board is long overdue. We are 50 years plus independent of Kenya. Many members of parliament or many leaders who have had the interest of the livestock farmers have been able to bring this bill to the floor of the House. Yet it has not been fruitful. Today I can see at the end of the tunnel there's light for people who are pursuing livestock and livestock farming in this country. I thank the Honourable Speaker, the bill mover, Honourable Bashir, for bringing this into the floor of the House so that the people of this region and the country as a whole can be able to benefit from the creation of this bill. This bill is intended to make and streamline the livestock and livestock products marketing in the country. Honorable Speaker, if you can be able to see, Kenya has nearly 80% arid and semi-arid counties. And nearly out of those, their livelihood depends on livestock and livestock products. And over the years, there was no proper and organized marketing strategies for people who are driving their livelihood from livestock and livestock products. Honorable Speaker, this board, if created, will certainly be able to provide enormous income and business for people from these counties. If you look at it currently, and before independence, just in 1958, there was a board which was created for Kenya Meat Commission. The Kenya Meat Commission was only to provide for an offtake for livestock from these areas. But certainly it has not been able to meet its objective in trying to mitigate against livestock and livestock trade. Today, the creation of this bill will be able to address the shortcomings of the Kenya Livestock Market, KMC board, which was created in the early independence country. This marketing, if you look at it, livestock is moved from those regions. They come to Kenya, and they come to market, urban markets of Nairobi and other market centers. And those farmers are disadvantaged because of middlemen. And the middlemen try to exploit the farmers who have kept this stock so that they can be able to get an income. So certainly this board will be able to regulate against the middlemen who will tend to exploit the market farming. Other challenges that this board will be able to mitigate is the issue of so many abattoirs which are uncontrolled, and even the hygiene and the health status of those like the Bama market and many other markets which are in existence in this country. So this marketing board is intended to regulate the entire marketing system of this country so that we can get value for our livestock and livestock products. This board will also try to make us explore other market opportunities that exist in the country and outside this country. The Arab nations, particularly Dubai and other Emirates have huge markets for meat. With this board and its current regulations which are going to be in place, it is likely to make us get value for our money, and the country will be able to get an income for it. If you look at the records which exist in this country, nearly 12% of the GDP, 12% of the GDP comes from livestock and livestock products. And that is an enormous contribution to the GDP of this country and the economy of this nation. This, with the creation of this board, certainly, and with the ailing of other market, other crop farming and other agricultural products, this one is going to increase the income for the GDP we are likely to get from 12 to nearly 20 or 30% as FSH. So this board, if created, will certainly be able to improve the economy of this country. This is a new frontier. This is a new frontier. As the agriculture chairman has said, through his experience as the chairman of the agriculture board, he said most of the agriculture boards have been ailing. The cashew nut has a board, it is collapsed. The coconut has a board, it has collapsed and is not doing well. If you look at all specific crops, the tea, the coffee, all those have been created with a way to improve the marketing of those products. Yet they seem to have a problem. But over the years, we didn't have a livestock marketing board which has been created for that purpose. So this board is very timely and is going to support the people of this region and the country as large. Thank you very much.
Before we get to the next speaker, shall we can see the chair of delegated legislation is here. Would you table your report?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, October 9th, 2019. Report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Public Finance Management Act, National Government Amendment Regulations 2019 via legal notice number 155 of the 26th of September 2019. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Are you having a notice of motion, Honorable Chair?
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations of 2019, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 205(4) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, Section 18 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, and Standing Order 2010-4B, approves the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations 2019, legal notice number 155 of the 26th of September 2019, thus approving the amendment made to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations 2015 principal regulations as follows. In Regulation 26(1) subparagraph C, deleting the words 50% of gross domestic product, GDP, in net present value terms, and substituting thereof for the words 9 trillion shillings. And B, in Regulation 196, paragraph 1, by deleting the words net present value of the total public debt that is, and substituting therefore the words set limit. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
At some point I was wondering whether you're doing a notice of motion, but clearly you are. Yes, to my right now, Honorable Russell Ari.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. And I want to thank Honorable Major Bashir for this bill that really is timely. This bill was killed in the last parliament for really reasons unknown to us, the pastoralists. At the heart of the pastoralist is something called livestock. It is the basis of our economy. And I think when we sit in this house, we talk about many other issues, agriculture. But livestock has never been a major, serious subject to be considered by this House. The committee of this House is Committee for Agriculture and Livestock. While we talk about agriculture in the broad sense, but I think the chair will agree with me that we have never seriously considered the matter of livestock. So I thank Honorable Bashir for kicking this bill back to life. Mr. Speaker, when a particular product contributes to 12% to the national GDP, that is a lot of contribution, and Kenyans must take note. The Treasury must take note, and the executive must take note of this. Honorable Speaker, ASAL supplies 80% of meat consumed in the country. That every other meal we take, there's a meat product. And that shows the level of contribution of the ASAL, where almost 70% of Kenya actually is occupied by the ASAL people and their livestock by and large. Mr. Speaker, the thrust of this particular bill is about marketing of livestock and livestock product. If we just take the example of one country to the north called Djibouti, the port of Djibouti is largely sustained by export of livestock and livestock products that they are able to collect that livestock from Ethiopia, from northern Kenya, parts of Somalia, and it is what runs the port of Djibouti. Honorable Speaker, Kenya in this region actually is the third largest producer of livestock and livestock products after Ethiopia. And we need to take cognizance of that fact and put money into this particular sector. Honorable Speaker, the death of LMD, the Livestock Marketing Division, and the KMC, to large extent, actually undermined the value of maintaining livestock as mainstay of the pastoral economy. Therefore, what we have resorted to is to use abattoirs in Kiamaiko and Dagoretti as basically a throwaway market where you are offered your livestock at prices that are determined by brokers and middlemen who invest actually zero to the product that they are buying from you. Mr. Speaker, through this bill, I think we also need to recognize the importance of management of the rangeland, because in the absence of the rangelands, because it's only 20% of livestock that is actually maintained in the rest of 20% of the country. So for this economy to thrive, the 80% of Kenya that maintains this livestock, the rangeland will really need to be maintained. Mr. Speaker, there are a few things about this bill. One is about the board. We need to clearly focus on the board, that the board is representative and it represents the pastoral economy. Those who are members of the board must clearly reflect the diversity of that particular sector. In the bill, there is also suggestion of a CEO who will actually be appointed by the board. But the bill has not said for how long the CEO will actually be in office. I think that may be oversight, and the mover of the bill must actually think clearly, because it means that the board can hire and fire at will. Maybe we give the CEO to be in office for 3 years, for 5 years, so that the security of tenure, and he or she will be able to effectively serve in that office. Mr. Speaker, finally, what I want to say is the livestock farmers find themselves that this particular sector is no longer has value for money. It's no longer beneficial. But with this bill, we'll be able to focus, because the board will focus us onto this very important sector of the economy and generate income for the farmers and also for the nation. Mr. Speaker, With those few remarks, I beg to support this bill, and I want to say it's timely, and I want to thank the mover. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before Honorable Guna speaks, allow me to recognize staff from Murang'a County Assembly, seated at the Speaker's Gallery. Ruth, why is Honorable Nyolo saying Kabisa? You may not speak to this one. But it's just a recognition of staff who are from Murang'a County Assembly. Ruth Mombi Kefide, Legal Counsel. We have Joseph Kemadi Guyo, who is a Sergeant at Arms. We have Joseph Kimani Duati, Clerk Assistant. And Irene Modoni Mungai, Communication Officer. They are welcome to follow the proceedings of this House this morning. Honorable Guna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity given to me. Indeed, I would like to thank and congratulate Honorable Bashir. I think I can assure him he's coming second term because he comes from a livestock zone where there are a lot of pastoralists. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised we don't have board for livestock and livestock products. And we have been having a lot of boards. We have got sugar board, we have got fish board, we have got so many boards in place, but I'm surprised a sector which is actually controlling 12% of what we are feeding on a daily basis doesn't have a board. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm rising to support this, and I would like actually to congratulate the honorable member who has moved this, and I like this idea of this board. The functions of these boards are very comprehensive. And I would like to lament on this idea of this board developing and rehabilitating livestock marketing infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I would recall when I was a child, my grandfather actually used to rear livestock and used to sell hides and other carcass of the livestock. And I would like to say that these things are no longer more because of the climate change. Mr. Speaker, we would also like to say that this sector is so neglected because if we see, and actually one of the functions of this board will be to support infrastructure improvement in the slaughterhouses. I don't know how many slaughterhouses we have, and some of the counties even don't have slaughterhouses for livestock. And I would like to say that this motion actually should be supported fully. Indeed, a lot of things, actually, if this board is in place, we are going to alleviate the issue of lack of standardization of our products. Majority of the countries which have actually successfully implemented these kind of bills and also have boards in place like Great Britain, their products are actually marketable everywhere in the world, not actually in Africa or East Africa alone. Mr. Speaker, if this board is in place, all this function without elaborating much on them and without actually going through a lot, I think it's going to help our sector. Mr. Speaker, I would like also to comment on the issues of the composition of the board. It is so clear, and I hope this is one of the places actually, if the appointments are going to be made, we need to have people with expertise and also who can help our country. And with these few remarks, because Mr. Speaker, I've not really gone a lot of details about on it, I would like to support and request the honorable members in this House to actually support this bill. Thank you.
Honorable Mutunga Kanyuithia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this particular bill. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank Honorable Bashir Abdallah for bringing this bill to the House because it is one most important bill, and I'll say why. Honorable Speaker, we are a country that is agricultural in terms of resources and in terms of contribution to the GDP. This country relies to about 50% on agriculture in terms of direct contribution, which is about 34%, and about 27%, which is indirectly. Livestock sector is one of the most important sectors again, And I would like, Honorable Speaker, to pick out the definition of livestock to give comfort to our friends from the pastoral areas. Honorable Speaker, livestock is defined as cattle, camel, sheep, goat, pig, poultry, rabbit, bees, and also companion animals and draught animals, as well as any other animal which the Cabinet Secretary may by owner in the Gazette declare as livestock for the purposes of this particular act. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like to join our friends from the pastoral areas by telling them that livestock is an important industry in the entire Kenya. It's not really for the pastoral areas. And therefore, we should have the comfort to discuss this particular bill with all the confidence that we need. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to highlight the importance of the livestock sector, which contributes 12% to the GDP. And this livestock sector, despite the contribution to the GDP, is not given the prominence that other sectors get. I just want to compare the livestock sector, Honorable Speaker, with the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector contributes between 9% and 13% to the GDP. It keeps on wavering between 9 and 13%. But some of the individuals who have invested in manufacturing in this country are very well known when the entire livestock sector is not actually given the prominence it should be getting. So, livestock sector is a very important sector, and therefore we need to give this bill all the support that it requires. Honorable Speaker, I just want to highlight a few important issues that have been brought up by this particular bill, like regulating the products and livestock marketing. We need regulations for us to be able to access organized marketing and reliable marketing systems. So without regulations, we may not be able to access the European market, we may not be able to access the Middle East market, we may not be able to produce sufficiently even to sustain a supply to this market. Honorable Speaker, promotion of trade of livestock is important. Trade is mainly promoted. We vote for money, we put money into the promotion of trade. And without a board or without an organized way of doing this business, it is not possible for us to promote this product. We need to promote our livestock as different breeds and important breeds for various products that they give us, and also the products themselves. If we have to achieve the Big Four agenda, especially the agenda number 3, which is manufacturing, we need to produce a lot of livestock products so they can feed the industries as raw materials. Without organizing this particular industry, it is not possible for us to sustain supply of raw materials to these industries on a consistent and regular basis. Honorable Speaker, we need advisory services, organized and credible advice to the government, both the county government and also the national government. We need a think tank, and this bill comes in to create this think tank in form of a board, which is supported by a secretary that will be focusing very carefully on the issues that have got to do with livestock. Honorable Speaker, we need a consistent way of mobilizing resources and managing these resources so that we may promote our livestock industry. Most of this country is ASAL. ASAL means arid and semi-arid. Being ASAL, we need to invest in range improvement of those rangelands so that we can be able to produce livestock in a more meaningful and more productive way. In order to do that, we need to mobilize resources. And resources will not only be mobilized from this house, not the resources voted in this house. We have a lot of resources lying out there with the donors. We have resources that can come from even private philanthropists who would be guided to support this particular industry in a better way. So this board is all important in the sense that it will be organizing or it will be coordinating the function of mobilizing resources to invest in this particular industry. Honorable Speaker, value addition is the core to growth and development of any country. If we have to industrialize, we must think of different ways and fashions of value addition. We must define value addition in the correct terms, and we must be able to invest in value addition. And without a proper machinery to think through the value addition, and the many products that we need to add value to, then we may not be able to reach there in a short while. So having the board in place to look at the livestock and livestock products will not only identify which livestock species or breeds that we need to promote in different parts of this country, different ecologies, it will also enable us to know which products we need really to promote so that we may be able to add value and therefore industrialize this country and create the jobs that the youth need in a big way. Honorable Speaker, the infrastructural development of the livestock industry is very poor. Indeed, some of the speakers who have spoken before me have clearly articulated the fact that there has not been commensurate investment in livestock as there has been in crop, although the two of them are falling in the same ministry. This sector, we need to invest. We need to invest in abattoirs, the modern abattoirs. We need to invest in holding grounds. And I want to take a minute on our speaker to discuss the issue of holding grounds. We used to have a very elaborate mechanism of marketing livestock in this country. Thanks to the corruption that has been, and thanks to many other social ills that we have nursed as a country, we lost the entire livestock marketing machinery that we had developed for very many years. This used to trek, the animals used to be trekked from the northern ridgelands all the way targeting the railways where they would be loaded to go to the coast for export. We lost our market, our quota in the European market because of disorganization and because of land grabbing, so we do not have holding grounds. Holding grounds used to be used as fattening centers and also disease control centers. Right now we are struggling as a country to come up with a policy to develop what we are calling disease-free zones. It's taking forever to come up with these disease-free zones. It's time we thought about livestock seriously if we really want to develop as a country. So this bill is most important in the sense that it brings under into this particular very important sector in terms of organizing the sector back and making it a more reliable sector. Ensuring the animals. We have efforts of ensuring these animals. There is no coordinated mechanisms of identifying which animals need to be insured, how these insurance covers are going to be organized. I don't think the ministry, and more specifically the Department of Livestock Production, has the capacity to do that, besides many other things that they have to do. I mentioned the number of livestock that I'm talking about, and there are many. So we need a specific think tank that will be able to develop these ideas and promote these ideas in a better way so that we will be able to know how do we secure these livestock of ours for purposes of having consistent and reliable production. Honourable Speaker, the farmers have had to deal with a lot of taxation, a lot of levies in this industry. Anybody who wants to get quickly rich goes to the agricultural sector and also the livestock sector. We need a board that is going to enable us to regulate and look at the kind of taxes and levies that are being charged in different points in this country as livestock move, and also even as we process this livestock. We need also to be a body that will scrutinize and advise on the policies that the subsector should have. There are very many policies in this subsector, but I would like to say that besides there being many policies in this subsector, Honourable Speaker, I can confidently tell this House that this is one of the subsectors that is poorly regulated. Livestock sector is extremely unregulated. We do not have serious policies, we do not have serious laws. The acts in the livestock sector are very poorly done. So we need to have serious focus in this particular industry, and I believe this is the missing link. So if we have this board, then it is possible for us to have the policies, the guidance to have policies coming up. My final point, Honourable Speaker, is about the technologies, innovations, and management systems that we need to put in place in order to enable the livestock industry to grow. There are many technologies that are developed, but they are scattered across the country landscape, across the country research system. We need organization of these technologies and a mechanism of conveying these technologies to the farmers so that we can enable the farmers to produce livestock as is produced in other countries of this world. There is no way Botswana can beat Kenya and take the Kenyan quota. We should reclaim our quota by focusing on the livestock industry. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Very well. Honourable Moro, I'm sure you will speak, but before you do, allow me at the Speaker's Gallery to recognize a group of university students from Nyakach constituency, Kisumu County, as well as Kangema High School, Kangema constituency, Muranga County. We also have Gatanga CCM Secondary School, Gatanga constituency, Muranga County. At the public gallery, we have DN Kiburi Sulmak School, Raleigh constituency, Kiabu County. Kiruara High School, Gatanga constituency, Muranga County. Boni AIC Girls Secondary School, Makueni constituency, Makueni County. And finally, PTR Primary School from Raleigh constituency, Kiabu County. they are all welcome to follow the proceedings of the Assembly this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, I listened carefully when Major Bashir was moving the bill. When you look at livestock, Mr. Speaker, I realize you focus more on the meat side. You forgot to mention something on dairy. And I want to give a full definition. My friend Mheshimiwa, who is an expert in agriculture, he has talked about agriculture, looking at the issue of the crops and looking at the issue of the animals. I know Kenya is a signatory to the Maputo Declaration, Mr. Speaker, whereby it says 10% of the GDP of the country must be invested in agriculture. So when we break it down, now we come to the livestock side. When we talk of livestock, there are mainly three components. We're talking of dairy, we're talking of meat, and skins and hides. Those are the three critical products. So when we talk about livestock, let's not get skewed. I understand my colleagues from the northern part of this country, mostly they're on the meat side. And maybe that's why in their preparation or presentation, they focus heavily. But right now, with the issue of the climate change, we are seeing many people going towards dairy. For instance, when you come to Trans Nzoia County or the part of Rift Valley, where it's known as the green basket of this country, things have changed. Because of the poor prices when it comes to maize, people are moving towards dairy. So the dairy industry, it needs to be looked into. Right now we have a monopoly. We only have two major players. This is the Brookside, who you know the owners, and you have the KCC. And these two organizations, Mr. Speaker, they are really bring a lot of problems in the dairy industry. How I wish that they must be look for a way in a liberalized manner. We know KCC is a parastatal. It is now 100% owned by the government. We know very well Brookside is owned by private owners. But these people, it seems they collude. There's a conspiracy that they've been coming together to frustrate the dairy farmers. Recently, they reduced the price of milk per kg, which was going about almost 40 shillings. Now they are buying from the farmers at 23 shillings. So it is indeed important that we should have such a board which will look into ways of value addition to help the poor farmer. In this country, Mr. Speaker, we've been told about livestock contributing about 12% of the GDP of this country. But when you look at the investment, it is actually negligible. And I want to thank and salute Honorable Major Bashir coming up with this particular bill. It is going to add value. It's going to provide employment in terms of value addition to our poor Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention some of the products. You know, when you talk of dairy, we have the whole milk. Kithunguri here in Kiambu County. When you go to Kiambu County, particularly in Kithunguri side, the farmers are relying heavily on dairy. And they've adopted the modern technologies in terms of production. So where to go right now, we want value for money, we must go the value addition. The yogurt, we are talking about the yogurt, we are talking about the butter, we are talking about the milk products. You find that if we go value addition and we have a good body that is going to do the regulation and supervision, it will add value to the common farmer. Now, these two monopolistic, is it called oligopolistic? They are frustrating farmers. And we are calling upon the relevant bodies or the CS in charge to look into. We know in this country is a liberalized market. And that's why this parliament, in its own wisdom, moved in the banking industry. The banking industry, much that has been liberalized, but the players in the banking industry, Mr. Speaker, they've been making abnormal profits. And it will reach a level, we must also move in the dairy production. Because these two, KCC and Brookside, I think they are making abnormal profits and frustrating the farmer in terms of pricing. So they must look for a way of pricing in a competitive manner that a farmer can also get value for their money. Mr. Speaker, another issue about our pastoralists. The big part of this country is semi-arid. And we are aware about the Galali Gulalu, the ghost project, whereby the production per acre of maize is only coming to 5 to 10 bags. whereby when you go to parts of Rift Valley, you can be assured of 20 bags where God has placed us with the good rains. So this is the time the government should focus on priority products. And in this case, I looked at the formation of the board. And Honorable Bashir, because I know he's listening, and he'll be answering. When we form this board, it's going to be a state corporation. And state corporations are guided under the State Corporation Act. So it's going to be very, very critical, so that as we move forward, in terms of the composition of the bill, we can borrow so much from the State Corporation Act. And I do agree with you when it comes to formation of this board, because livestock, as per Schedule 4 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, it has been devolved. So it will be important, the Council of Governors, also to have a slot as far as the composition of that board is concerned. And obviously, we'll have a CEO. And when we have a CEO, under the State Corporation Act, there's a guidance. We have some parastatals, a CEO goes for three years, others go for 5 years, renewable. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the composition of the board. We should borrow from the State Corporation Act, which is actually going to help us. Look at the Kenya Meat Commission. Kenya Meat Commission was a wonderful idea. But when you go there, the kind of animals even they buy, you know, there's something called GMP, the good manufacturing practices. If the raw materials are substandard, obviously the output will also be affected. You find that some of those things are emaciated. And in this country, we have a very big potential that when we go to the beef production, because of the nature of the asal and the semi-asal, we can produce so much that we can have beef and we can be able to export. And we can also bring in issues of FDI, the foreign direct investments. How I wish that those particular counties, wherever they are, they should focus, give priority on this issue, because it's going to add a lot of value, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we can't be legislating in vain. In the last parliament, I brought a bill in this house, which was assented by His Excellency the President, the establishment of a fertilizer board. Because we've had a lot of issues when it comes to crop production, and we know very well that fertilizer plays a very critical role. Up to now, the board has not been put in place. And we're talking about 6 years down the line. The bill passed, the establishment of a fertilizer board, because National Cereals and Produce Board, their core business is not fertilizer. But they've been doing the fertilizer business. And it has brought a lot of corruption, and when it comes to delivery on the ground, we don't get the subsidized fertilizer. So it was a wonderful idea. The fertilizer board, it passed, the president assented, but up to now, 6, 7 years down the line, we don't have a board. Today, we're also discussing about this livestock and livestock products board. If we pass it today, I don't know when it is going to be implemented. So we are calling upon the Committee of Implementation in this parliament, that they're the ones in charge of follow-up on parliamentary resolutions so that they can be implemented. The core business of the executive is to implement what has been enacted. But we are legislating, and it dies on the shelves. So all the good efforts that Honorable Bashir has put in place is going to, I'm worried it might take another 10 years or 20 years to implement this. So we are calling upon the government bodies, the government agencies, wherever they are, that any matter that has been passed or resolved by Parliament, it should be implemented immediately, because it's going to add a lot of value. It's going to provide employment. In my area, I've seen young graduates from university. They've gone towards livestock. You don't have to be employed. You know, 70% of an unemployed, Mr. Speaker, are the youth. And it would be nice the young people can also pick up this livestock production and even agriculture in terms of crop production, so that you don't just sit at home to wait for employment. We are aware unemployment is a big problem. This country, Mr. Speaker, like best practices, like the borrowing, normally is about 50% of the GDP. President Mwai Kibaki, in his regime, he borrowed up to 48%. He left us with a debt of about 1.8 trillion. The Jubilee government currently, they are doing almost 6.8 trillion, and they want to extend it more to almost 9 trillion. Where are we going? Where is the problem? Corruption is everywhere. The projects, if they are costing 10 shillings, is going to be 3 times. So that 20%, almost 200% goes somewhere, and 100% is the correct amount. So it is the highest time that we must support the church, we must support His Excellency the President in the fight against corruption. Because corruption in this country, this is something that is bringing this country down. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Shall we have now Honorable Yusuf Haji, member for Mandela West?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I sincerely thank my colleague, Major Bashir, for having brought this bill, which is very timely. Mr. Speaker, sir, livestock, has already been said, contributes 12% of the GDP and 60% of the employment opportunities within the agricultural sector. This country, 80% of this country is arid and semi-arid, and the best practice, economic practice that can happen in this arid and semi-arid is livestock. But unfortunately, compared to the other sectors of agriculture and other sectors of productivity in this country, the livestock has always been given a very raw deal. Just compare the sort of boards that are there in this country. You hear of pyrethrum board. You don't have a livestock board. You hear of cotton board. There is no board for livestock. You hear of, this could have compared to, maybe by this time, at this stage, we could have been talking of the camel development board, the sheep and goat development board, and, to compare it with the crop section. But imagine that after those years of independence, we are now talking of the Livestock Development Board. The Livestock Development and Livestock Product Board, this board which we are now discussing, the bill which we are now discussing, was there in the 11th Parliament. It went round and round and round for about the 5 years, and it collapsed with the 11th Parliament. It has now been renewed. 2 years, 2.5 years now down the line, we are still at second reading. I will request my fellow members of Parliament to ensure that we fast track the readings of this and make it into a bill, into an act as quickly as possible. And then the implementation matters. If you look at the historical, before I go to the history, there was a presidential order establishing the same board back in 2012. And from 2012 to today, there is a budget going to the Ministry of Livestock for the sake of this board, which is not there. I don't know what that budget is doing, and since the board is not there. If we look at the historical perspectives, during the British rule, there was what we call the stratified livestock marketing system, whereby the pastoralists and the arid areas do the production at some stage, and then animals are moved to holding grounds where they are cleaned, where they are tested for various diseases, where they are vaccinated, and then moved to the highland ranches, like in Laikipia, where they are finally fattened, and then moved to KMC for slaughter and export market. We used to have the European export market. Unfortunately, we inherited that, but we killed it. We had what is called holding grounds or ranches all over. If I just give you an example of those ranches that were serving KMC, the Beacon Ranch, the Bombing Ranch, those who know, today they are not ranches, they are places for high-rise buildings. Do wananchi of Kenya eat high-rise buildings, or they eat livestock products? Which is a priority? Which is a priority? If we are now talking of the Big Four agenda of this government, and agriculture is one of them. And if we don't develop the livestock sector, if we don't put the livestock board in place, we shall not achieve the Big Four agenda as far as the livestock, agriculture is concerned. And also manufacturing. A lot of raw materials for manufacturing, the hides and skins, the bones, the blood meal, all those come from the livestock sector in order to support the manufacturing sector. And therefore, if we don't put these boards in place, if we don't put a lot of effort on the livestock marketing industry, then we shall not achieve both the agricultural Big Four agenda and also the manufacturing Big Four agenda. Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember very well that back in early 1970s, late 70s and early 80s, Botswana government came to Kenya so that they can be trained in the meat industry. We trained Botswana personnel, we trained them, they took all the knowledge from us here, they went to Botswana, established the Botswana Meat Commission, like our Kenya Meat Commission. Today, the Botswana Meat Commission exports meat to almost all the European countries, and the Botswana economy is based on that meat commission, which we trained, which we sent personnel from here, and we also brought personnel from the area, trained them and established. We killed ours, and now we are going for benchmarking all the time to Botswana. The Livestock, the Agricultural Committee is going to every year to Botswana. And it is the Botswana that we trained. It is unfortunate. If we had a livestock marketing board as early as many years back, then that could not have happened, because there is nothing to regulate this sector, the livestock sector. And that is why today we are looking at other people's industries and other people's development. If we look at the livestock products that need to be looked at, we are talking of the milk, and when we talk of the dairy, at least for the dairy highland, we already have the Kenya Dairy Board. That is why we are putting a lot of emphasis on the products from the ASAL and semi-arid. For your information, from the ASAL area, we also have dairy animals. We have dairy camels, we have dairy goats, we have dual-purpose cattle who are giving us a lot of milk. The ASAL and semi-arid areas do not import milk from the highlands, except during the very serious drought times. The rest of the time, they actually supply milk. A lot of camel milk is being supplied in the Nairobi market today, and it's also medicinal, and that is the dairy. But when you look at the Dairy Board Acts, it does not mention anything to do with the camel milk, which is a very important dairy product. Look at the hides and skins. Today, we are throwing away the hides and skins. In most of the homesteads and in most of the slaughter slabs and abattoirs where we are doing slaughtering of animals, we throw away the hides and skins. They are environmental hazard. We are throwing away this very important product that could have been put into manufacturing, into value addition, and now it is becoming an eyesore and an environmental hazard at our own backyards. Each one of us here in this house, seated this morning, has a hides and skin product somewhere. Look at your shoes. Look at your belt. Look at the bags that we are carrying. These are all hides and skins products. These are all livestock products. This cannot be promoted and improved because we do not have any board in place that can do this work. Livestock numbers in the country. We have never had, I think, a serious livestock census since 1980. I think the last livestock census was done in 1980. We don't know how many animals we are talking about. How do we plan? How do you plan and be prepared for a market which we don't know the basis or the units of supply? This year's census, I think there was a question about livestock. How many animals do you have? How many goats? The enumerators were rarely asking that. When I was being enumerated, and they asked me all the questions, and they told me that is done, I asked them, where is the livestock question? Because I knew there was a livestock census question there. Oh, they told me, sorry, how many camels do you have? That is a very unfortunate way. We have to have livestock census done in this country so that we can know. All this improvement, that can only be done if we have a proper board in place that regulates, that guides, and that helps, and that motivates.
The member for Mandela is very passionate about this one because, of course, he's a livestock keeper. We shall have the Honorable Makali Mulu. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me also support this important bill. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the mover for bringing this bill back to the House. Honorable Speaker, you remember in the 11th Parliament, because I know you are there, this bill was actually in this House, but it did not see the end of the day. So at the end of the day, it was not able to be passed. And I really want to thank the mover for bringing it back. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important bill. And I think listening to the members make their contribution to this bill, Honorable Speaker, it is coming out very clearly that the livestock sector has been, to some extent, been ignored by the government. And Mr. Speaker, some statistics have been thrown during the debate. We have heard this sector contributes about 12% to our GDP, and that is a very high percentage, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I think what we are doing today in terms of legislation should have been done many, many years ago, because this board is going to be very important to this country. It is going to be important because livestock, looking at Kenya as a country, most of our land falls under what we call arid and semi-arid areas. And those areas, it is only livestock which does very well. So it means if we pass this bill, the proposed board, Honorable Speaker, will help this country grow the livestock sector. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the Big Four agenda, there are two important pillars of that agenda which will be promoted by this bill. The first one is the pillar on food security, and the other one is the pillar on manufacturing. Honorable Speaker, livestock would go a long way in ensuring that this country is food secure, because majority of our people eat meat, majority of our people rely on milk for their survival and other livestock products. So once this board is in place and performs as expected in this bill, it is obvious that this particular pillar of food security will actually be promoted. The other pillar is the pillar of manufacturing, Honorable Speaker. And I have in mind the leather industry. Honorable Speaker, we are all aware of the proposed Kenani leather industry, just in the neighborhood of Nairobi, in an area in Athi River, where Honorable Makau is the MP. Honorable Speaker, for this industry, the leather industry, to grow and achieve the expected targets, it is obvious that we need livestock products. And Honorable Speaker, having this board in mind, it is obvious that, Honorable Speaker, then this sector will benefit much in terms of promoting the manufacturing sector. I just want to give an example, Honorable Speaker, and I like what the immediate speaker has said. When I was a young boy, Honorable Speaker, my own father would go to the local markets, buy skin and hides, and sell, and at the end of the day, all those products find their way to Athi River. Currently, these things are just being thrown away. When you slaughter your goat, you either have to give them free to whoever is interested, or you throw them away, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, some of us actually were able to be educated through that. That small trading was able to take us to school and pay for our fees. And I imagine, Honorable Speaker, when this board comes to be in place, it will focus more on value addition, so that at the end of the day, the livestock farmers in this country are going to benefit. Honorable Speaker, the issue of Botswana Meat Commission has been mentioned by quite a number of speakers. And what is coming out, Honorable Speaker, is I've visited that commission myself, the Meat Commission, Botswana Meat Commission. And when you go there, Honorable Speaker, you realize the difference between them and us, our own Athi River Meat Commission, is technology, the value addition, Honorable Speaker. They have gone a long way to make sure that they use technology to add value to their livestock products. And as a result of that, Honorable Speaker, Botswana is now a major supplier of livestock products. And actually, I think their GDP other than oil and all that, they're getting a lot of money from the livestock sales, Honorable Speaker. So what we are saying is, this board will also make sure that they use technology to add value to livestock products and in a way assist our farmers. The other important point is the issue of drought in this country. Since the drought is very common in this country, you realize that every drought period, the pastoralists and the other livestock keepers lose a lot of animals. Either they die or because of drought, and then you find they incur a lot of losses. With this board in place, Mr. Speaker, I see a situation where the board will be able to plan very well for destocking when the need arises and restocking when the conditions improve. So in that way, Mr. Speaker, you find that livestock farmers will be able to have kind of insurance through the board so that they don't incur any losses. And that will help them also, to some extent, sustain their income and be able to predict their income even as we move to the future. Honorable Speaker, we are all aware that livestock products are very expensive, and actually if we were able to get market for those products, they will be able to make money. And that's why the board becomes very central in the whole process. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of international market. Honorable Speaker, if you go to countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like Iraq, all those countries require a lot of meat. A lot of meat. And it is obvious that the demand for meat in those areas has never been met. And with this board, I see a situation where this country will be able now to penetrate such a market so that when our people keep their livestock and after getting their products, they are able to sell without any problems. In that case, Honorable Speaker, we'll be helping our farmers in this country, and then we'll be putting the livestock sector where it used to belong in this country. Because we all know agriculture is the mainstay of the economy, and in the process then we'll be helping this economy. But even as I say those good things about this board, Honorable Speaker, I must point to one or two things which I think, as we form this board, it will be very important to make sure that we take care of these areas which I think are important. One of the areas, Honorable Speaker, is the inefficiencies we are experiencing with the existing boards. And people have mentioned coffee board, tea board, parathram board. All these boards are there to support farmer, market their products. But there are a lot of inefficiencies in terms of operation. And Honorable Speaker, I think as a country, we need to make sure that these boards don't become so inefficient so that at the end of the day, the money which is supposed to be going to the farmer ends up being the money which is being used in the office, and it doesn't benefit our farmers. That's one area I think really, Honorable Speaker, this board will need to be aware of even as we form the board. The other area, Honorable Speaker, is the area of corruption. And Mr. Speaker, corruption is now a cross-cutting matter in this sector, in this economy. That whichever sector you talk about, corruption issues keep coming up. And Mr. Speaker, I think this morning we had a bill which was discussing the issue of corruption and making the penalties more stiffer than they are today. My proposal, Honorable Speaker, is this. I think this country needs to come to a level whereby those who benefit from corruption, in addition to being punished, then all the assets acquired through corruption are recovered by the state. In that way, Mr. Speaker, it will be an exercise in futility if you engage in corruption. Because, once you are discovered, all that property will be taken back to the state and it becomes state property. To me, I think even if we do as many laws as possible, even if we do what, the best thing would be any benefits or any gains coming from corruption, at the end of the day, once somebody is discovered, they find their way back to the state. In that case, then people will just work hard and people will be able to do what the Bible says, that people must work hard and out of their sweat, they will be able to succeed, other than succeeding through shortcuts, which are making the economy can grow. Honorable Speaker, as we are discussing, we all now we have been asked to increase the the debt ceiling, Honorable Speaker. And these are simple problems as a country we could do away with if we became more organized. With those remarks, I want to support. Thank you for the time, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Makali, you must be aware that even currently we have the asset recovery the agency that is supposed to recover all these assets that these corrupt people have. But I have never had any conviction or anywhere where they have recovered, and they are earning huge salaries in those offices also. So it is complex. The Honorable Mutua Barasa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill. This is a very good bill, but I'm just wondering, Honorable Speaker, it appears like the AFA he has failed. And I know for a fact that when an institution fails, it is not the institution itself per se, but it's the people who are in the helm of that particular institution, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, there is need to really streamline cattle farming in this country. People who have spoken before me have said, that Kenya is a captain of innovations and coming up with such good institutions. But when other countries come here to benchmark, they improve on our idea and they do much more better than what we are doing, Honorable Speaker. And I'm even aware that some of the beef that we eat in this country is coming from countries that have come here to benchmark. But they are doing very well, while ourselves we are going under, Honorable Speaker. But even as we support this bill, Honorable Speaker, it is important with the passing of this bill and the establishment of the Livestock Marketing Board in place. We feel that that livestock farming is going to be improved in this country, but unless, Honorable Speaker, we go back and address the challenges that the Paretram Board of Kenya are facing, the challenges that the Coffee Board of Kenya are facing, the challenges that the boards that market tea in this country is facing, Honorable Speaker, we might go back to the same situation, same problems, Honorable Speaker. So it is very important that even the Committee on Agriculture should also carry out an audit on the relevance of these very many marketing boards for other products in this country, Honorable Speaker, because as you are aware, this country, we have diversity of economic activities. We have in the parts of Eastern Kenya, those who do sugarcane farming. We equally also need those farmers to be protected from middlemen, to be protected from cartels who import sugar and collapse this particular industry, Honorable Speaker. So it is a fact that we need to approach the whole of these matters together so that we don't leave any part of this country behind, Honorable Speaker. This is a very good bill. It's going to put in what we call good manufacturing practices in this sector, Honorable Speaker, because I know that this sector has been affected by people who steal cattle from elsewhere, and then they dominate the market because the price is fairly low. Because it's easy for you to sell a cow that you have stolen at a cheaper price than those who have really gone through the procedures of rearing those cattle, developing them, and they need to also to be protected by this marketing livestock board that we seek to create, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, even as I support this one, Honorable Speaker, I will be very happy to see that we are not reinventing the wheel in terms of the proposal on how we are going to compose the board, because this board is going to be a state corporation, and the state corporation, the formation, the modalities, or how you do it, is found in the State Corporation Act, Honorable Speaker, and for the purposes of improving on this bill, Honorable Speaker, later on at the Committee of the Whole House, we will be proposing amendments to be able to improve it, Honorable Speaker, and most particularly to be able to envisage the mitigations against the very many challenges that such marketing boards goes through in this country, Honorable Speaker, so that we are able to form a state cooperation in the name of Livestock Marketing Board that is coming to solve very many existing public problems.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this particular bill, which is very important and have come at the right time, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the House is aware of various boards that we have to market our various products, especially in the agriculture sector, Honorable Speaker. We have the coffee board, we have the brethren board, the fish board, the tea board, sugar board, Honorable Speaker. So I don't even know why we have never thought of having a livestock and livestock byproduct board specifically to deal with livestock byproduct, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, but I'm aware of a presidential directive that was given in 2012 to this effect to form this particular board, Honorable Speaker. And I'm not sure if we have not been having budgetary allocation to the same board that does not exist, because if it is true that we have been having budgetary allocation to a board that does not exist for all these years, Honorable Speaker, then we are there for a major scandal, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill have come at a very right time, Honorable Speaker, to be able to exploit the resources that are within the 80%, and we have not been able to get value for the livestock, millions of livestock that we have, and it is a major game changer in terms of economy in this country if it is exploited, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I thank the Honorable Member, Honorable Major Bashir, for bringing up this bill, even though I have heard that it was in the 11th Parliament. Honorable Speaker, you were there and I was not there, and it have never seen the light of the day, but I urge the House to make sure that this bill from Honorable Major Bashir see the light of the day the soonest. Honorable Speaker, and you know, when you are called a major, it is not a mean title to have, because major never retire, and if he retires, he does not die, and if he dies, he will not rot, and if he rot, he will not smell, and if he smell, he will smell rose flower. Honorable Speaker, our people, Honorable Speaker, from the Alsal areas, that is 80% of the landmass of Kenya, are tired, Honorable Speaker, of always being supplicants seeking favors from the government whenever there is drought, Honorable Speaker. Yet we know if we exploited this resource called livestock, Honorable Speaker, especially the byproduct, not only the meat alone, Honorable Speaker, our people will be self-sufficient, Honorable Speaker, will be better than Brazil, which export animal byproduct, Honorable Speaker, to the rest of the world, Honorable Speaker, because Brazil is also in a tropical country, it exports livestock byproduct, it is self-sufficient, Honorable Speaker. 80% of our land mass occupied by pastoralist communities will be self-sufficient, rather than being always supplicants seeking favors from the government whenever there is drought, seeking favors from Red Cross that they need food, they need to be fed, Honorable Speaker, because we have not exploited their economic activity fully, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we talk of animal byproducts, we are not only concentrating on meat alone. Honorable Speaker, in our slaughterhouses, in our abattoirs, we have a lot of blood that go to waste, Honorable Speaker. Yet blood is known to produce the highest quality of fertilizers, Honorable Speaker. It is shameful that in this country, with that blood going to waste, we are still importing fertilizers, using billions of taxpayers' money to subsidize so that our farmers can have fertilizers. Yet, the blood that we throw away from our abattoirs, from our slaughterhouses, and even from our homes, Honorable Speaker, goes to waste, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, bones from our animals have been thrown left and right. If you go today to northern Kenya, if you go to Narok, Honorable Speaker, you'll be able to see so many carcasses lying idle, even from wild animals, Honorable Speaker. They should have been collected, Honorable Speaker, because we have bone meals that are very important in the manufacture of fertilizer, in the manufacture of feeds for the same livestock, Honorable Speaker. For the manufacture of feeds for even dogs, Honorable Speaker, will be the highest exporters of dog meals, for instance, Honorable Speaker, because we can be able to crush these bones and produce meat meals, dog meals and even dairy meals, Honorable Speaker, from the same bones, Honorable Speaker, that we throw. Honorable Speaker, we also have hides and skins, Honorable Speaker. All members who are in this house, Honorable Speaker, have shoes that are from our livestock, Honorable Speaker. They have belts, they have wallets, Honorable Speaker. But you will never see a wallet written made in Masailand, a belt written made in Masailand, because we cannot. We import these very simple products that we can easily manufacture and make our people rely on, Honorable Speaker, and also raise the importance of our livestock, Honorable Speaker, because for a long time we have only concentrated on meat, Honorable Speaker. And when we concentrate on meat, then the animal itself becomes not very valuable, Honorable Speaker. That is why when they approach the farms, which we think they are more valuable than the livestock, they are short left and right, Honorable Speaker, because they are not, the value have not been realized, Honorable Speaker, from these animals, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, hoofs, Honorable Speaker, make very good buttons for our shirts, Honorable Speaker, and for our coats, Honorable Speaker. But we have not been able to exploit this particular market, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, even our illiterate mothers on the ground, especially from the Maasai, they are very good in manufacturing bells. I know most of honorable members have been buying bells that are manufactured by those illiterate mamas in the village. Now we have educated members, we have engineers, we have everybody on board, Honorable Speaker, and we cannot be able. When will this country be able to manufacture at least something that we will be proud of? Even when you go to abroad, Honorable Speaker, you find a wallet, Honorable Speaker, written made in Masailand, you will be proud of your own country, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, on the issue of the board, the composition of the board, since this particular function is devolved, the agriculture is devolved, Honorable Speaker, I will request Major Bashir that we look into ways of making sure that this board will be a state corporation. It will go as per the Code of Conduct, Mwongozo Code of Conduct of State Corporation and the State Corporation Act, Honorable Speaker. But let us see ways in which the Council of Governors chairman can be the chairman of this particular board, so that we bring the two levels of governments together so that we can move this wheel forward, because I know being the wheel that will be economically viable in 80% of the landmass of this country, then we will earn a lot from this, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it will also be a form of employment to thousands of our youth, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I do support this bill, and I wish and to request our head of state that as we fast track to bring to you, make sure that the executive, because he's the chief CEO of the executive, to make sure that it kickstart as soon as possible for the sake of our country. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Sankok, I do not believe that the blood that goes back to the soil goes to waste, because even the Bible says it should go back to the soil, that came from the soil, back to ash, that came from the ash. All that goes back to rejuvenate our lands. But, of course, we can add value to it. It's possible to add value to it. With a light touch, the Honorable Member 001, the Honorable Rono Kipkoge, Member for Keos South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to first thank the Honorable Member Bashir, who brought this bill about the marketing of livestock and livestock products. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, I'm glad to have learned that the blood from Honorable Songok can actually produce fertilizer. And also I've equally learned that the bones can be used for food and it can be crushed to produce food. Equally, as we have said, honorable members have spoken about creating a board, more particularly to promote the marketing of animal and livestock products. Honorable Speaker, we don't only want to create a board that is not strong enough, because we have very many boards lying idle all over the place. If you take, for example, we have a company by the name Kenya Meat Commission, packaging and reselling, only packaging and sales at 100 shillings. It is immoral. Honorable Speaker, also the issue of our country. Technically, livestock farming is spread all over the country. The population of this country, over almost 50% deal in livestock in one way or the other. So it can create a lot of employment, as our honorable members have mentioned. And to wish it away, we must strengthen this livestock marketing as soon as possible and sooner than later. Equally, you have heard that the GDP of this country, 12% of the GDP of this country is controlled by livestock and livestock product. So that shows the importance of strengthening the marketing of livestock by forming this board so that we can also strengthen the marketing. We also, this will help to wipe away the brokers who actually impoverish farmers by buying their livestock very cheaply. We also have the issue of drought, Honorable Speaker. Drought is causing mayhem in the country. And if we have markets for these products, we will not be having cows and livestock dying all over the place because of drought. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I support the bill as put. Thank you.
My home and village is littered with chicken, as our practice where we come from. So I have got a right to contribute on this matter because chicken forms a very serious meal on the tables of Kenyans, especially where I come from. Honorable Speaker, let me take this opportunity to sincerely thank the Honorable Member, Honorable Bashir Abdullahi, for moving this particular bill to deal with issues of livestock and livestock product marketing board bill of 2019. I'm told it came here last time, it didn't go through, but since the 12th parliament is a serious parliament, I reckon and I'm 100% sure it will go through. Honorable Speaker, Big Four agenda places a lot of emphasis on manufacturing and value addition. In that regard, the issue of leather and hide industry is critical in the achievement of that agenda. That's why where I stand, I welcome this particular bill that tries to mainstream livestock and livestock products into the Kenyan market and Kenyan discussion. However, Honorable Speaker, before I make some comments about the bill and generally about the sector, allow me to raise a few points of concern. Number one, looking at the government reorganization, issues to do with the marketing and promotion is a trade matter and consequently seems to fall within the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative. Also on this score, that probably even at the onset, when we are looking at the definitions of the Cabinet Secretary, it might be necessary for this bill to really have some bit of marketing aspect and probably could also have been referred
to the Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperative for its input, because marketing and promotion is a trade matter that solely belongs to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the issue of definition of livestock. We know we might have a cultural restriction, but elsewhere in the world, probably donkey and donkey meat is a delicacy. As I'm also told, dog and dog meat is a delicacy in other jurisdictions. And since we are about promotion and marketing and exporting, we should have given some thought about allowing that kind of business to thrive in this country. Nevertheless, Honorable Speaker, when you look at livestock products, again, Honorable Speaker, it seems to be narrowly defined. As my colleagues have mentioned, seems to be narrowly defined. Of course, blood, my colleague, Honorable Sonkok, has mentioned, and even the waste, the livestock waste, is such a nutritious additive to various animal feeds. It could also be used for manure, especially the cow dung. Chicken droppings are good for fish and the rest of other livestock. So it would be important at appropriate time to expand that definition to allow for further inclusion of other byproducts and products associated with livestock. Honorable Speaker, as my colleagues have said, would seem to suggest that this particular bill focuses more on cattle, camel, and that's why you find that our colleagues from semi-arid and semi-arid areas seem to focus much aspect towards that particular area. However, I would prefer the discussion is expanded to include poultry, to include dairy, and the other products that come, skin, and the rest that come along with these particular items. So consequently, Honorable Speaker, we know, for example, the dairy sector has got challenges. And one of the problems that I have with this particular board is a duplication of so many other existing boards. It's an indictment that probably AFA, as the overall body to oversee the agriculture and livestock industry, seems to have either failed or there is a feeling among the stakeholders that has not risen to the occasion. It has not played its part in the management of the affairs of this particular sector. As we legislate for this board, it might be important for us as legislators and the country to seriously relook at the wisdom behind collapsing all other corporations that manage the agricultural sector in the years past and collapsing them into AFA. Because honestly speaking, we don't see the impact and the effect of AFA in the country. Honorable Speaker, we have the Kenya Meat Commission. We wonder how will this board dovetail with the function of the Kenya Meat Commission. We have the Dairy Marketing Board. It's a question that we must find out how will they dovetail, how will they connect to make sure that we don't have a conflict of interest in the matter. We have the Leather Council, Honorable Speaker. We wonder how they will work together to avoid duplication and the waste of funds. Honorable Speaker, in most of the county governments, we have a full-fledged departments or sections, meat and milk and so on and so forth. But as I've already said, as far as dairy is concerned, the only problem we have is that dairy is focusing on milk production from cattle, from dairy cattle. Today, we have a lot of camel milk which is being marketed. We also have goat's meat which is also being marketed. And bulk of camel milk comes from Asal. But unfortunately, Kenya Dairy Board does not focus on promotion and marketing of camel milk. And therefore, when we pass this bill and it becomes operational, I'm sure probably we are going to address these bottlenecks in terms of marketing livestock and livestock products. We don't need to confine ourselves to cattle and dairy and so on and so forth. I would like to assure our counterparts from other parts of the country
that when we talk of livestock, if I just give the final example, even beyond agriculture and livestock, a country like Kenya, if you go to transport and roads, we have over 6 institutions, Mr. Speaker, most of them overlapping their mandate. A country like Singapore that we can borrow so much from, they have only one body dealing with the entire land transportation, Mr. Speaker, and that includes even the construction of those roads. Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say is that we must perpetuate the principle of having a lean government and leave livestock, tea, coffee, and all other kind of farming, Mr. Speaker, to the private sector. Once we create this, even fish farmers will want a board. Once we create this, even potato farmers from Nyandarua will need a board. Mr. Speaker, we are just perpetuating shooting ourselves in the foot, Mr. Speaker, by giving the government so much work at the expense of the private sector that can do much more business and better efficient business in livestock, that can do much efficient business in fish farming and all the other sectors of our economy. And for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, and many others that I can give if we had more time, I oppose.
Honorable Ndindi, very well spoken, but the example of Singapore, you must remember that Singapore is a city-state. It is, its area is very tiny, but they've done well, and we must learn from them. Honorable members, this motion still has 1 hour, 18 minutes.